Good morning. Welcome into Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We are happy to be here with you on a Friday. Well, no, I don't know how happy DB is.
No, I'm good.
You good?
Yeah, it's gonna be a long day,
Yeah.
but we're good. Yeah.
Well, you got games tonight.
Lot of hoops.
A lot of hoops tonight.
Little snow. I liked. I told you I'm a big balance guy,
Okay.
so I want moisture. And Ding Dong over here, he's out there doing his thing outside, and he's like, "Well, it could just be rain. We don't need snow." I'm like, at this point, with how far behind we are, I'll take it any way we can get it.
I actually think I prefer this type of snow to rain.
Really?
Yeah, where it's
because it doesn't really stick to the concrete.
Yeah, it doesn't really stick to the concrete, and it's not like pelting you.
Yeah.
When you're walking outside, it's
you're
not.
Cool.
Yeah, it's not nearly as bad as when it's like a downpour on your head. It's easier to be outside, get in and out of buildings with this. I mean, it's not bad.
No,
I'd prefer it not be cold, but it's actually not even that cold out.
I'm one of those weather weirdos, not a weenie, just a weirdo. Like I like for the grass to be green. I like for, flowers to bloom on time. I like a certain amount of snow. I think one of the cool things about being in the Midwest is 4 seasons. We don't even get them anymore.
Like the hotel?
Yeah, I don't know if I could probably afford too many nights there, but it's expensive, right?
Yeah, it's a high end hotel.
So I wouldn't stay there. I'm a Marriott dude.
Hey, me too.
Straight Bonvoy. The greatest book, the easiest booking ever.
The wife works there. I gotta ride for the brand.
All right, team your wife. not just random wives. Team your wife.
Oh man, we've got a good show coming up for you today. Coming up at 8:00, we've got Mike Sautter. He's been down in Lincoln with our guy Jacob Padilla the last few days, or last couple days at least, as state boys basketball continues. We'll talk to him about what happened last night in the smaller classes, not lower, smaller classes. And then we'll preview what's going on tonight in the Class A semifinals as well. Then coming up at 9:00 for your college hoops coverage, we got the one and only Nicholas Bahe. He will be joining us at 9.
Well, he's got Mountain West, right?
I think so.
Yeah, I think he's Mountain
Which
West.
is a good conference to have. That's a good conference.
I think it is. And I've been kind of high on the Mountain West. I haven't been able to get you on board, but
no, I like the Mountain West. I just don't like them better than the Big East.
I know.
There's a difference.
Even though
you're doing the thing that you don't like when people do.
Even though they beat you guys, but
I mean, I wasn't out there.
No, you weren't hooping.
No, it would have been worse if I was.
But
you can't hang that one on me.
I mean, it's a heck of a weekend. Will Creighton play tonight? I'm going to go ahead and say no.
Oh, absolutely not. No.
Yeah. What do you? Yeah, there's no.
You maybe go doubleheader tomorrow.
Yeah, there's no way. Shane, hit Alexa up and see what the what's supposed to be the high today.
It's in the 30s, I think.
Oh yeah, because that's 6:00.
I think the 6 o'clock. We're just gonna look at the So the high.
I'll guess 32 degrees at 6 o'clock. It's not happening.
No, absolutely not. The high today is actually 44.
Well, that's not bad.
But we've got the snow, we've got the wind. The 6 o'clock.
What is it at 6?
42.
Oh yeah, play that thing.
They're not playing.
No, I wouldn't want to.
100%. There is.
But if you're in from Portland and you've been here a while because
they were on Wednesday in Omaha. But you're going to be here tomorrow anyway. Just play the doubleheader tomorrow. I think it's supposed to be nice tomorrow.
It is.
Nicer.
How do you think the folks from the Jaguars from South Alabama, how do you think they feel?
They probably feel fine.
No, it's probably pretty cold for them.
Oh, they're Jaguars, not snow leopards, so it's not going to work out for them.
Yeah. It's the one sport that, that's why I don't always understand, like, why the Major League Baseball playoffs go so deep into October. Mm-hmm. Like, there are some chilly nights, like,
well, and in November now too.
Baseball is safe to say, like, it's not a sport that should be played in sub 40 degrees, sub 35 degree weather.
No, absolutely.
Football is fine. There's like nothing enjoyable about that.
Football's okay to a certain point, right? I'm not out there. We had the games in Buffalo and Kansas City this year that it's minus 20. Nobody should be doing anything outside at that point. Let's just be clear about that.
Trekking through snow.
I think I heard some Chiefs fan is getting something amputated because they got frostbite during
Oh,
one of
is
those
that
games.
but I thought it was wasn't he at a buddy's house? Wasn't that at the watch party or was he at the game?
I couldn't tell. I
That might have been the guy that they couldn't find that was stuck outside, or maybe he
that
passed.
guy died.
Yeah, he unalived. Not himself. He just was unalived.
Yeah, and then the I think there were 3 dudes in that yard.
Yeah.
3 dead dudes in that yard.
And did I read that correctly? There was no foul play involved?
That's what they're saying. And
so guys were just on one and couldn't come back inside, or
and the guy, there was no snow at the time, and the guy just didn't know he had 3 dead friends in his backyard. You want me to believe that?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because it was days before the cops.
Well, a
called.
couple, I think.
Yeah, but it wasn't like a couple hours.
Yeah.
You could be like, you're at a party, you maybe have a little bit to drink. I could understand not noticing somebody. I'll give him up to like 12 hours overnight, right? You're drinking, you go to bed, you think everybody went home, you wake up the next, and he had a dog.
I remember the guy's story. He's like, I didn't think anything of it.
And he had a dog, so he let that dog outside at some point.
Yeah.
You cannot tell me, if there's a dead bird in my backyard, the dogs won't leave it alone.
Yeah.
You're telling me there's 3 dead bodies in a backyard?
I haven't had anything
and this dude's
close to remotely decomposing in my backyard, so I don't know.
Every once in a while, a bird or something will.
Yeah.
Or I had it was bad.
I'm glad I don't have that problem. A lot of the former radio colleagues that I've worked with have pets that don't mind killing random things. That even Kugler, and his dog, he's got like a nice dog. Just come home with some random birds, and Severe's got the worst dogs and cats. They bring home so many strays, it's not even funny.
I don't think my dogs do the killing. I think they just discover the animals.
Yeah.
If they're in my yard, right? So you can't tell me that this dude in Kansas City had 3 dead dudes in his backyard and his dog was just like, not a big deal. We're cool.
The only time my dogs go outside is to use the restroom and maybe a 10-minute walk.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I let mine play outside a little bit because they're, especially Doug, he's got to burn off some energy,
Yeah, Doug's a big guy.
He's a big dude. I play football with him in the backyard. He can fit a whole football in his mouth.
Yeah.
And so
there's no way you're bringing that guy down in the open field.
No, absolutely not. Yeah. He will truck stick me.
Yeah. Kind of like Bo Jackson.
Yeah, he's got more highlights than Bo does, though. More career games, too.
Wow.
We'll just move on from that.
Wow.
There was a couple things I wanted to clean up from Rule's conversation with JD Pickle the other day, because I know the overall tone of the speech wasn't a ton different than what we'd heard, but there were a couple nuggets that we got to, and we got to one of them the other day when we were talking about.
Yeah, you love your nuggets.
I do. Chicken nuggies. Whew.
Well, we've I'll let you finish, but we've gone through a lot of different brands. We finally found
chicken nuggies.
We finally found the jackpot. We have 2. We have some gluten-free that we get from Costco, but then I follow the McDonald's corporate chef on TikTok, and he let us know where the closest McDonald's ones were.
Oh, where
the tempura batter.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay, those might have to slide that to me.
Those get knocked off.
Oh yeah.
I found the hash browns too, and the sausage.
Is who crushes those more?
Zoe.
Yeah. Okay.
100%.
That's what I figured.
100%.
But in terms of Coach Rule nuggets, there was something he said about Tony White that I wanted to get to, and I haven't heard anybody else bring this up. This is why I'm still bringing it up, because I like to be unique and different and fun.
It'll be fun to watch.
Listen,
fun. I get the I get the gist of what you said, but the fun part threw me for a loop. Yeah, right. It's a lot of fun. Every day I have to make sure when I walk in here that you're not up to something diabolical and you're talking about fun.
Listen, I think
Does that weird you out? How I always kind of have to check out the place?
No, I mean you're kind of a strange guy.
Well, I never know what you're walking into.
Doesn't really surprise me. You could be a little bit of a weirdo.
Very aware of my surroundings. So when I stalk people that I'm thinking about. Well, just stalk people that I'm just thinking about. I kind of like to get to know patterns.
Get the lay of the land.
Yeah, I was like, oh, he goes to the gym and he gets the kid. Yeah, I got you.
You try to be friends with somebody and you're like, I gotta figure out their whole schedule.
Nah, I probably wouldn't be friends. I just gotta do the recon.
I'm not taking that next step.
No, I want the extra work. But what did he say about my man T. White?
So he he said when he was talking to JD and about how Tony White was staying there, he goes, "We were able to do some things to help his situation." I assume he mostly just means give him a little pay bump, and But here's the part that I don't know that a lot of people caught. He goes, "We didn't do those things to get him to stay. We did those things after he decided to stay." That to me there's an enormous difference there. It's kind of, what it reminded me of instantly was the Dominic Raiola situation, where a lot of people on the front end are like,
Don, or
Dom,
okay,
Dom, the O-line coach,
Donnie.
Donnie,
Yeah.
sorry,
Okay.
yep, that's my bad. There's a lot of D names in that family.
Yeah.
Don't forget about Dayton. Donnie.
Yeah.
It reminded me of the situation where he gets retained, and they're like, they're just trying to get an in with Dylan and with Dom, and trying to keep it in the family, whatever. And then before they had any idea that Dylan was back on the table, they go, "We like this guy. We're going to reward him. He's going to get a pay bump." They took care of Donnie because of Donnie, right? They didn't give him the pay bump to get him to stay so that they could be like, "Hey, look how good we took care of your family, Dylan. You should come over here." They didn't do it because they thought Dylan was still on the table. They did it because he earned it and he deserved it. And he did a good job for them this year. Tony White, it's a little bit different situation, obviously, but I kind of liked the fact that it was, no, we're not going to entice you to stay with money or with whatever the improving his situation was. I'm assuming money, right? It was, hey, this is why we think you should be here. If you want to go take that job, we're going to support you. You heard Coach Rule say, hey, I'll make the calls. He did make the calls. Talked to UCLA, thought they were crazy for not hiring him. But once he decided to stay, they're like, hey, we're going to reward you because you're our guy.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's like that even with, I don't know everybody's situation, but I imagine he's like that. He had a couple of guys that wanted to come back that could have left, and those players didn't even remotely bring up NIL.
Nothing.
And I think he felt like that was pretty cool, right? Like when he's talking to guys that he's recruiting and he's out and he's like, this is just the environment that we're trying to create. And such and such and such and such. They didn't ask for a thing, right? They like they like where they're at now. And then he slid this in. He goes, "Now we're going to take care of them."
Yes.
So that's what made when you started saying that, like that made me think, and maybe that's how and that's pretty cool, right? I like that about his character set because I think ultimately, like if you want some long term sustainability or you want somebody to value you for you, help me make an informed decision. If it works out in your favor, cool. If it doesn't, and you're supporting me, like you're for me, then you'll be happy for me. But if I'm on, like, if I stick around and I show some loyalty, take care of me, but at least make me earn it and let me know you want me around. Like that's cool. Those are the kinds, because there's just my opinion. My experience is those are the kinds of people that like they'll go to work for you.
Well, and even if they leave, I fully expect Tony White to leave within the next year or two.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I hope he doesn't. He's terrific at what he does. I know you've got a personal stake in not wanting him to go, but I mean, okay, so let's 3 years tops, right? This man is destined to be a head coach at some point. Is that fair?
Yeah.
I think if he wants to, I think that is
definitely that's what he wants.
If that's what he wants, that is definitely on the table for him sooner, probably rather than later. So it's not like I think it's important to kind of make that distinction because Tony White can be a loyal guy and still move on, right?
100%.
That loyalty isn't contingent on staying at Nebraska.
Loyalty,
and we've seen that with other guys that have coached with Matt Rule also, right? Marcus Satterfield went off to Tennessee Tech, I think, came back, right? Jeff Nixon, I bet, is still a Matt Rule guy. We just saw it with Glenn Thomas.
Oh yeah, for sure. Nixon is his guy.
Right, that's what I mean.
Yeah,
but he hasn't coached with him since Baylor.
Yeah.
Right. Glenn Thomas was doing his thing in the NFL, came back, still a Matt Rule guy. Right. When you are loyal to more than the paycheck, then you can move on and leave and do what's best for you, whether you're a player, whether you're a fellow coach, and still have that relationship for, I mean, basically the rest of your life,
Yeah,
right?
and listen, I'm not saying I know sometimes when people hear me talk about like Coach Rule or the staff or something, it's like there's no downsides, right? I just don't know of a ton, but I'm sure as humans, like
Sure, nobody's perfect.
they have their faults. But for me, in like my experience is it's just hard to not want to see them do well.
Hmm.
I don't care if you're a Nebraska fan or not. Like if you're just around them as people, it's not like you're gonna leave the conversation and be like, I don't like that guy.
Hmm. And there's people like that.
You know, even Coop, who doesn't give you a ton,
Hmm.
like you kind of root for him because you just know what he's about,
Hmm.
right? It's like, so I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Yeah, 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 coach. Um, so I think that kind of, I think it matters because we're always talking about like modeled behavior.
Hmm.
Like if don't undersell just being good people. I had this conversation yesterday with DJ, just like the varying degrees of difficulty of just being kind.
Hmm.
Like overall, you wouldn't think it would be that hard, but when you are, it's easy for people to gravitate towards.
For sure.
He was mainly talking about love. It's like, gosh, when you're authentic, it's just like it's a natural magnet.
Hmm.
And knowing that, you kind of sometimes wonder why it's so hard for people to do.
Oh, I 100% know why it's so hard for people to do.
Okay, do tell, because
It's a
you'd be solving the human
it's a
complex.
fear, because I listen. I have a very distinct point in my life where I was not a genuine person, and then within 6 months, that I became who I really
Yeah,
am.
yeah, I understand. Yeah, I know that
Right.
all too well.
So, and it's at 30 years old, got divorced, was in counseling for 6 months, and came out of that realizing the only way for me to be happy in my life was to be who I truly am and be okay that some people weren't going to be about it.
But you know what's interesting? It seems like the more people are like that, the more people are okay.
It is.
Right?
That's the great irony of it all, because there's this huge fear, right? And that's I said I know why people do it. This is why I did it. I assume it's pretty similar for everybody. I was terrified that people wouldn't like who I really was, but what it really is I was terrified I wasn't good enough.
Mm,
The real me wasn't good enough
mm.
for anyone else. That's what the fear is, right? And so when I realized that, and I'll give my counselor, shout out Ukai. I don't know if he still listens or not, but he used to. But he said, hey, if you're not yourself, the people you think like you don't actually like you anyway, because you've never given that opportunity.
Hmm.
And I had never realized that before.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I remember when he was talking about kind of generally speaking about the job and
Mhm.
what it entails and being an ambassador of the state and those that have come before him. And he kind of had this reverence and respect. And he'd always talk about like how he felt like he was just going to be his own person,
Mhm.
right? Whether he was in public, hey, if I want to go have a ginger ale, I'm going to have a ginger ale. If I want to have a Coors Light, I'm going to have a Coors Light. If I want to hang out with this person and they've
Mhm.
been vilified in this arena, or if I'm going to do that. Like he goes, I want to figure this out
Mhm.
for myself. And I think over time, I think that's kind of what people are drawn towards,
They are.
right? It's
Because
like,
I don't think I'm a terribly like charming or magnetic person, but the number of people that have been like drawn to me since I made that change in my life, and that's not to say I'm like an overly popular whatever, but the number of like the way my life has changed since I started being just who I am and not really apologizing for it. Listen, there's times I have to apologize because I mess up. That's a different thing.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that's where I think
I always tell people like the best apology though
Mhm.
is change
It
behavior.
is, right?
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Like,
But I think people a lot of times will be like, "Oh, this is just who I am," as an excuse to be an a-hole,
yeah.
right? So there's a
Well,
difference.
yeah, for sure.
There's a difference between unapologetically being who you are and never apologizing.
Yeah. So have you ever heard like the players like they'll be pulled off to the side or something like that, and like, oh man, he's a real one.
Mhm.
Like you don't even know what that means, but you know what it means.
100%. It means absolutely nothing and everything at the same time.
Right? It's like, oh, he's a real one. And it's just like,
Or like, I'll ride with that dude.
yeah,
Whatever, however
yeah.
they say it.
However you say it.
For sure. And it all comes down to you have to, it kind of comes back to the if we die, we die thing. You have to be okay with the outcome that you're not going to be for some people, and that's okay.
And this wasn't like I just remember talking to Coach White about the first job opportunities and stuff with SC, and because I told you guys he was up at the school, and at the end, I'm just trying to get my takeaways without force feeding anything, and I was like, you know what, like I think he came out of this with more respect for Coach Rule and a guy that he already had a lot of respect for
Mm-hmm.
than anything else. And I'm like, wouldn't that be cool? But you don't really know
Mm-hmm.
what people are like, what's in there, unless you're willing to like. You
Ask
got,
some uncomfortable questions.
yeah, you have to kind of put yourself out there,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Like, I use our boss. He, m- him stretching me
Uh-huh.
and me being willing to like openly invest in him, like changes the dynamics of the relationship,
For sure.
right? Somebody just asked me about him the other day,
Mm-hmm.
right? Of for significance, we're talking. I said, "Hey, listen." I said, "I'm just telling you, like, the dude is for people being positive. Like, he wants you.
He,
Genuinely wants to see you succeed.
he wants to see people win.
Yeah, like you know what I
Yes.
mean. And
Yeah.
so I like, and I felt comfortable. Like yeah, come back and see me if this is not true. Now, this is what I believe to be true.
Sure.
This is
Yeah.
my. But so far, like, because it's kind of hard to get in there at first, and you're a little afraid because he's super smart, and it's just like,
He can be a little intimidating.
I
Yeah.
well, it's because he doesn't say much. It's not,
Yeah. I don't think he
you
does.
know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's not like he looks me, but like, and so my point in saying that is with T White and Coach Rule, I think you don't really know the genuine I'm for you, the brotherhood, because we all talk about brotherhood and these
Mm-hmm.
cultures, and you don't really know until you make yourself vulnerable. It's the making yourself vulnerable that's the hard part. And there's some magic in there for
Absolutely.
some other people.
And it's vulnerable from the Coach Rule side as well to put himself out there and be like, hey, this might not be what's best for me.
I like that you picked that out, Ravi, because I think that's the one way Nebraska can combat the Portland NIL. Make it a place where people want to be.
Absolutely. More Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next. We're back here on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We are live from the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. We had some state basketball last night in the smaller classes, Class B, Class C1. I know that our guy Jacob was out at C1, so he may have missed the.
They're all his former players.
They are. No, I appreciate that.
No, I do too. JP's a good dude.
He is a good dude, and he's actually he's a good basketball coach too. I don't think people know that about him.
I saw it firsthand.
Yeah, like he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, so 2 years ago we beat their top team by quite a bit.
Mhm.
We trailed his team at the half
Yeah, he knows what he's doing.
by a few.
Which is you wouldn't knowing his personality, you don't look at him and necessarily say
I have a lot of
he's knows what he's doing.
and I have just
Super smart dude.
the thing that I like. I watch how he communicates with his players.
Yes, not a yeller.
Like, man, I've watched his best. I've watched him. He benched a guard.
Yeah.
Sat him for probably it was a minute, probably
Mhm.
7, 8 minutes,
Mhm.
because he turned the ball over early. And occasionally talk to him on a bench between walking and pacing and whatever. And um, turns out he's one of his favorite players. And I'm just like, you have to be able to do that.
You have to have a good relationship with a
You
kid to be able to do
you
that
have to be
and not
able.
to lose him.
Yep, you have to be. I watch him a ton. Like he's legit.
I say helped in quotes with him one year. I showed up a handful of times. I wasn't like, um, and it was really cool for it to see firsthand like how he operated. And that was pretty early, I think, in him coaching high school kids. And it was really cool to see how he operated and how he communicated.
You ever sat at games with him?
I mean, I sat on the bench with him for a handful of times.
Yeah. So, like from me to you, like he won't while the action's going, he's not talking to you.
No.
Right? if I'm across the gym or something, and we may be both critiquing something at the same time, I may send him a text.
Mhm.
Rest assured, if he responds, he's not responding until there's a whistle.
Absolutely. Yeah. No,
Like
he's locked in.
the dude is
Whether
like
he's coaching,
locked
whether he's covering, he is
in.
locked in
Uh,
until there is a
I don't
break in
know.
action.
I don't. So I know he went to go see his guys. I think he let Sautter handle B.
Yeah, yeah, I'm wondering what his reaction would have been to the reported scuffle
Yeah,
in the Class B with Omaha Scott and I don't know who the other parent was from.
so it's just
They didn't.
the wording was
Super
weird.
strange.
So I read what Mike immediately tweeted. You know, he said, talk to an official. It wasn't this, it was this. I tried to ask a couple of guys that I trust. One was in another building. Um, then I read Sam's little blurb in the World Herald. I saw Stu's tweet where he said second time in 2 weeks, and
Hmm.
apparently there were, I'm always here for the comments. People didn't love some people didn't love that he said that, but I don't know enough to speak to the particulars of repeat offenders or throw stones, but I am anything you tell me that happens in the stands with parents, I 100% believe though.
Yeah, it gets pretty unhinged up there
Well, it's
sometimes.
just and I think it's progressively getting worse. So,
And I want to say, like I understand it's an emotionally charged environment, but when we talk about modeled behavior, like would any of those parents be okay with their kids doing something similar?
I don't know. I
I,
mean,
I
yeah,
have to imagine no.
but
No.
I think you would be surprised.
Maybe, but that's sad if I would be.
Listen, this isn't DB here for defending violence. I think you would be surprised at how there's like this blurred, um,
Like Robin Thicke, blurred lines.
like blurred boundaries between parental advice and like you talk to your buddy,
In
right?
in what sense?
Because I think I could hear some people saying, "Hey, man, you better defend yourself," or "Hey, don't let anybody do such and such." And they're adults like that are providing
Most of the
feedback
time,
to young people, right? So, I mean, hear my heart here.
okay.
I'm not condoning. I'm telling you what actually happens.
Hmm.
Hey, there's a lot more hey you betters now. You better insert blank. You better not put up with blank. Like it's just become very very reactive. And so I think you'd be surprised
Isn't
at
that most of the time a bad idea though?
listen, I'm not here for the outcomes.
Okay,
I'm telling you how we got
just
here.
what it is.
Yeah, because
Okay,
we're not afforded the luxury of just fast forwarding to the end game.
okay,
You have to ask yourself how you got there.
okay.
And I think how you got there is I think young people feel empowered to act a certain way because of 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 what's being instilled and instructed at home.
Mm.
I think you would be surprised.
I think I would be because
It's not like there isn't this reverence for like, hey, don't talk to officials that way, or hey, don't talk to adults that way, or
oh,
hey.
I know that.
Okay, so why do you think that the sports arena would be anything different or like have different moral compass? Like you see what happens with young people in authority. And it's not just their fault. Like it comes from somewhere.
Yeah.
Like you can't eh, I cannot stand how we fast forward to condemning kids
Hmm.
without holding where they got it from responsible. Like it just doesn't happen out of nowhere. Right? It usually comes from somewhere. But we're still, man, kids today don't do this, and kids today, man, neither do some of these punk ass parents. Like I'm just saying, like,
Well, that was kind of my point though. Was
so
that
I think you would be surprised. And I don't know what happened. Listen, you have to full disclosure, right?
Mhm.
Well, t- just Wednesday, sitting with Coach Runco from Westview and his staff and Oklahoma Tyler,
Mhm.
and it wasn't even our game yet. We were just sitting up, kind of by ourselves. There were a couple of college coaches there, And I said, gosh, I said, this is uncomfortable. I'm used because I'm listening to all what's going on around me.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it was kind of cool. Oh, that 13 from Miller North, he shoots from anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so some of that stuff was cool, but then like their critiquing of things that I don't think of first timers, and
Mm-hmm.
I was like, this is interesting because like normally I'm in these secluded spots when I watch venues, or I'm in the broadcast booth, or I'm on the sidelines.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not really
Like in the mix a lot.
in the mix a lot.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's and I have a lot more self control now than I used to, but it's still hard for me. And I know I have a lot like people say, "Oh, DB just had this, or DB did that, or did you see what he did?" So I know like,
People are paying attention to you.
but it's hard.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, especially like if it's your kid. I could see parents.
Like if somebody had said something about somebody else.
I just had this conversation with. Can I say his name? He works with the NSAA.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm driving down to Lincoln the other day, and we were talking about what makes their jobs difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, you just sit at games and you listen, and because the topic of officials came up,
Mm-hmm.
and official shortage, and all the vilifying. And he said, these people, I watched at this particular venue that he was at on Wednesday, parents just berate
Mm-hmm.
officials,
The entire time.
and you want like your kids to like be opposite, or you don't think like that's gonna spill over, like it just does.
For sure.
So I don't know if I'm like taken aback, and I don't know if that's sad or good that I'm not surprised, because I don't know what happened. I mean, maybe they had an exchange about something he did at work. I don't know what happened.
Sure. Could have been
Right.
about anything, right?
So I'm not casting judgment on that. I'm just saying, like, kind of the holier than thou. I can't believe. No, I can actually see it.
I mean, I can see it.
I actually, because I see it all. Like, it gets dicey. You see some of these like barstool accounts, or
Mhm.
like it comes from somewhere.
No, I get that. I still feel comfortable condemning, like putting hands on people.
No,
in
I'm with you.
public. Like,
I'm with you.
I don't
Like,
really care how we got there.
no, I'm with you.
You know,
I am totally with you on the right and wrong. But
right? How we got there,
you can't really.
you
At
can't
least
ignore that part.
I don't love throwing stones
Yeah.
without trying to arrive at a solution.
That's fair. I mean,
Right?
my solution is, hey, be better.
I didn't see it, so I don't know.
I don't really think I need to see it to say, hey, don't get invited to high school games. All right.
See, I think yes, but I kind of think that's a lazy take.
It might be a lazy take. That means it's wrong.
No.
I'm not Michael Brunts over here being a lazy voter.
There you see.
Fight!
We'll wrap up hour number one coming up next on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Wrapping up hour number one here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We are live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. That's CB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We are going to be catching up with Mike Sautter about high school hoops here in just a minute. But there was a story that came out on ESPN a couple days ago about the Alabama coaching search that I thought was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Because
you love that guy,
who?
DeBoer.
I do love DeBoer, but that's not even the interesting part about it, right? The interesting part about it was several other guys mentioned in that story, or at least two other guys mentioned in that story that I like a lot. And that's Mike Norvell and Lane Kiffin. Apparently, and I had heard this at the time because I follow a lot of Florida State people.
I knew, and you were trying to throw Norvell on me, and I was like, I don't know, man.
I think Norvell was the first choice. I think he was. The way that they go through the article, the Greg Byrne wouldn't say who he contacted first.
I love Greg Byrne too, by the way.
Reading that, he maybe came out the best of that entire story.
I think he's sensational.
He seemed like he knew exactly what he was doing.
Great dude.
He told the Alabama players, I will have you a new head coach in 72 hours. Got it done in 48. Like that, you know how confident you have to be?
He's a great dude.
To be like, hey, we are closing this deal before the weekend's over.
Yep.
So I came
big Greg Byrne.
I came away incredibly impressed with Greg Byrne. I also came away with the impression, and it backed up what I heard at the time, that Mike Norvell was the first choice, which makes some sense. Norvell has a little bit longer track record at Power 5 than DeBoer does. That's all.
You know the coolest thing about Norvell being mentioned? Remember when the shine was almost off of him at Florida State?
2 years ago. Yep.
So he's come out of the back end.
And those people, and I know it's part of it was like Willie Taggart syndrome and stuff like that, because it was pretty clear with Taggart that it wasn't happening and it wasn't it right away. If you were paying attention, you knew, despite the records, that Mike Norvell was headed in the right direction. I've sort of felt the same way that I did last year with Coach Rule. Like, yeah, the games didn't go exactly how we wanted it to, right? Really feels like they were heading in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
They held their faith in Mike Norvell, and they were rewarded, right? I think the same thing's going to happen with Coach Rule. What I thought was interesting besides that, though, was, besides validating my thoughts on Norvell,
which is the most important.
Not the most important, but it's up there. I love being right. And was the fact that Alabama was not interested in Lane Kiffin.
Mm-hmm.
And that they were interested in Steve Sarkisian, but they knew he wouldn't be interested in them. If I give you any job, you're an AD. Okay. We did this exercise with Sarkisian and Leipold last week. I give you Lane Kiffin or Steve Sarkisian. Both are options for your job. Who are you taking there?
Yeah, a full disclosure, I'm probably taking Kiffin.
Absolutely.
But this is so weak. But I have to be around them for a little bit.
Sure.
But like, so this is truly at first blush.
Outside looking in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would take Kiffin.
Which is all we can do, right? Because we don't have
But I could also see how they don't want the rat poison. They don't want the pictures. They don't want the Twitter. I could see Alabama not wanting what comes with that. I 100% could see that. And that doesn't take anything other than being on social media. So I'm not like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they do that. Because I think what people forget about Sark, despite the 71-49 record, which by the way is not terrible, right? Now I know he got hot this year. He's a heck of a recruiter, and he appears to have instilled some discipline in that program.
So is Kiffin, by the way, heck of a recruiter.
But do you know what I mean? Like, so maybe Sark is going to trend up. Now, I said this yesterday. I don't think 12 wins is sustainable, especially in the new
SEC.
Yeah.
Well,
but at first blush, like I would just, sure, I'd take Kiffin, but I wouldn't like.
Not going to die on that hill.
Nope. And if you wanted to debate it, there'd probably be some give and take.
The only reason I can see Sark making more sense is
I think I like Sark a little better than you.
Probably. I'm not a fan. I don't think he's very good.
Yeah.
I think he's been worse throughout his career than people realize. I think Kiffin has been better throughout his career than people realize because he got let go at USC.
Let me ask you something.
Yeah.
Who do you think, if they surrounded themselves to offset their weaknesses, who would you take?
Kiffin.
Ooh, I don't think I would.
Really?
No. I think.
So here's what I'm probably doing there.
I think Sark is a very good offensive mind.
And
I'm not saying Kiffin. No, I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not saying that. But I'm saying, like, if I wanted a guy to walk into a house and talk to somebody I cared about, I probably would lean Sark. Because I want what else comes with it, especially if he's going to offset. Like, let's say he has a blind spot for secondary play.
Sure.
Or he's unorganized or whatever, because, not everybody's good at everything. So if you give me two guys that have the ability to offset their weaknesses, I probably would take Sark.
So here's what I think I'm doing with that question. And this is not.
Does that make sense how I'm saying it?
It does.
Okay.
The reason I said Kiffin so quickly is, and this is not really answering your question, which is why I'm bringing it up. I think what I was doing with Sark was thinking he was less likely to identify his own weaknesses.
See, I don't get that. So you're talking about a guy who had a really rocky marriage.
Mhm.
You're talking about a guy that suffered from alcoholism.
Mhm.
That unto itself causes or can be a catalyst for a certain amount of self-awareness,
I agree.
right? Because you have to.
I also think that there is I think the same is true, at least for the marriage part of Kiffin.
Yeah, but he's made it fun. Like he's made light of it. There wasn't any real.
That we know. I mean, that we know of.
Well, like I said, that's what I'm saying,
Yeah, right.
right? Like my first thing was I don't really know him. I look at, like, if I'm going to take pictures with two perceived attractive females and say come to the sip
Mhm.
or be out on my yacht with catching a marlin, like those are the things that lead me to believe, and I could be wrong, but give me the impression that I don't know how, like, I don't know if bottom was really bottom. Like sometimes it's got to hurt you to the core, man, before you really. Why did I tell you I love what Sean Padden said when I didn't mention him by name, but when he was, he's talking about taking self inventory.
Mhm.
He's like, sometimes it hurts.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I was like, you're my hero.
The reason,
Right? Because
yeah.
people that are self-aware always give themselves a chance to be successful. They always do.
So the reason I think Kiffin is self-aware is because he basically is acknowledging all of the things that people have bad to say against him at any given time, and he's okay with it.
I mean, that doesn't necessarily. Trump doesn't care either. I don't think that that's a direct correlation of self-awareness.
It might not be.
It could be irrational confidence. Like
could be.
you could be so narcissistic that you don't take into account what anybody else thinks about you.
That's fair. It definitely could be.
Oh, 100% it could.
That's not how I have perceived it from Kiffin, but it might just because I like him.
What I'm not putting that on
right,
Lane.
but it's
what I'm telling
possible.
you, I'm just giving you a different vantage point.
For sure, and that's fair. I will say the one thing I would understand about Sark over Kiffin is Texas is more similar of a job to Alabama than Ole Miss is.
And here's the other thing, just looking at the two, even the guy that was mad at the young handler in the tunnel when when Sark got mad and everybody wanted to vilify him, and I'm like, man, in the moment, in the tunnel, like,
yeah, it's not the best time.
It's not. Yeah, like I'm not holding that against Sark, right? Like you say some things in the moment, like just imagine. I couldn't believe how that took off, but I'm not even going to get off on a side note. Like that didn't bother me about Sark really, but I'll say this: like if you're just looking at those guys, and let's take Doug, one of those two guys has to watch your dog. Who are you taking?
Well, I know Kiffin has Juice, his dog, and
do you follow Juice?
I don't follow him, but he reposts a bunch of his stuff, and I follow Lane. So I see him handle a dog, and I'm like, okay, he's, whatever. So that part is hard to say with his dog. Now you're asking who I want to babysit a kid. I probably go Sark.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
It's like I would not at first blush. I get the Kiffin.
Yeah.
But I don't think. I mean, you dig a little bit. Like you could easily make the case.
That's fair. I mean, I wonder if part of my and this is, I definitely have a bias towards Kiffin. I just like Lane Kiffin, right? So I'm acknowledging that. I wonder if the fact that Kiffin gives us more makes me feel like I know him better.
I remember Andrew and I did an exercise about top 5 coaches.
Yeah.
And I had Kiffin. He had Kiffin fairly high. I mean, he was always high on Rule, and I had Kiffin a little lower. And I said, I just don't think we would be ready for Lane Kiffin, which put him down on the list, right?
He's probably a little closer to the Dion than he is to a Rule.
Ooh, I don't know about that.
Not like in terms of it sort of becomes the Lane Kiffin show, and not like it's about the university. It's
because his teams are good.
They're really, really good,
and they run the ball and they play with some toughness. And
no, I'm talking more about like the vibe becomes it's the Lane Kiffin show.
And Ole Miss could be good, really good again this year.
I mean, they got better as anyone did out of the portal this year. Coming up next, we've got Mike Sautter here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We are joined now by Mike Sautter of Hurrdat Sports. Mike, you should get a little stretch there. How you doing this morning?
I'm good. I'm great. I'm fired up today. Got a brand new shirt on today.
All I see is Neb and corn. What's on the bottom? Preps. There we go. Got the whole
I
picture.
said Joe Rome's in the house.
That's our mascot. You didn't know?
I did know. I was just giving you a hard time.
Sing along with me if you know the words. I said Joe Rome's in the house.
I don't know the
You didn't
words.
used to watch Martin?
No, not really.
Michael Jerome Sautter, how we doing, buddy?
He's too young for Martin, Damon.
Why are you putting young Jakob on the pullout?
There's only 2 options. I ain't sleeping on that
It's just real matter of fact too, right? Like, well, it's not gonna be me.
Yeah, I don't know if you knew that, but that ain't happening.
So how are things, man? Are you like locked in?
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good. I was I was a lot disappointed yesterday.
Why? What happened?
Just fan behavior stuff, right? It was a lot.
Okay. Robbie,
Outside of the fists being thrown, it was still a lot. Like there were like 8th graders in the front row of like the parent section last night that were like F everything the whole game.
I told you. So listen, I just got to take a second.
Okay.
So Ravi was asking me these questions about what happened with the reports with Scott, and I said, I said I don't know what happened. I said I'm just telling you, like, we're so quick to like be upset with kids, and kids do this, and kids say that, and kids 8th graders use the F word. Like that comes from somewhere, right? It's allowed somewhere. Like, and I told him, I said I'm not condoning the behavior. I'm not. But don't think just because it's parents or adults that like it's some sort of set aside or more disappointing. Like it's kind of becoming what it is, unfortunately, in some of these arenas.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if you've ever had a conversation with me outside of publicly like this, you know that I can curse and do a lot, right? But I'm not screaming that at other people, referees, players, other adults. Like that's not, it's just part of my like lexicon, how I talk, I guess. I'm not, it is totally unacceptable for what I heard last night sitting 4 feet behind me for an entire game.
And they're on your back too.
Yeah, it was.
That's why I don't go. I don't know why you like that spot.
It was like F you baldy, F you, not just at me, right? It was like at the referees. Like,
guys unite.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, whatever. Like people talk about me, they can. I do not care. Like the worst part is it goes back to this, right? Like we're so, like you said, Damon, we're so quick to judge kids and their behavior and the entitlement, and they always need to be getting a medal or a ribbon, or they're always wanting something. No, it's not kids. It's you parents that want the 7th place ribbon so you can post it on your damn Facebook, like, or Instagram or whatever. Like, it's your fault. You're the problem. Like, kids are kids. They learn it from somewhere. I'm sorry. Like, it is so bad. It is so bad. How bad does it have to get where 2 grown men throw punches in the stands at each other because people can't stop yelling F whatever at officials or players or whatever it may be around kids? How bad is it? That's horrible. Like, it is absolutely unacceptable. There's no question about it. And I frankly said so, like, privately when I was sort of like, hey, wish you wouldn't have said anything publicly or whatever about this. I said, no, screw that. Like, the behavior's got to change, and the only way to make it change is to embarrass people for their behavior.
Now we kind of differ on that,
Mike
but
Sautter here for public shaming.
I'm not gonna. The methodology is what it is, but I get what you want the desired outcome to be.
But okay, my voice, right? Like, I'll use my voice for that change for sure because I believe strongly in it.
I think it's wearing on the directors and stuff too.
100%.
That put on the events. I think those men and women are I think they're at wit's end.
Yeah,
I really do.
And it's, the respect the ref campaigns and all the things that people do. Like, man, like, save that. No one cares about that. Like, no one's paying attention to that. Clearly, all you got to do is open your ears.
And listen, and two things can be true at once, right? Like,
right.
Officials can need to be, but like I just was at a game where we got a bench warning 2 minutes into the game, right? Like that's
right.
That shouldn't happen, but that doesn't. But I didn't say a word. I mean, first of all, nobody can hear me, so who cares? That
doesn't justify the behavior.
It doesn't justify the behavior, though, right?
Right.
For people to be mad at that, like, I mean, there's certain things we'd all like to do differently, and we can kind of see calls, no calls, but like just the amount of how brazen we are, whether it's through social media, whether it's in public, like there's just these parts of me sometimes where I was like, I would like consequences is maybe too strong a word, but I think people do it because they think they can. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they get away with it.
Right word. Because they feel like there's no consequences for their actions. When you feel like there's no consequences for your actions, it becomes a really, really dangerous place.
Like you're just trusting people to have kind of
to be better than that,
to have the moral compass pegged at this, whatever it is, and it's subjective to everybody.
Well,
though, right?
Here's something I don't think is subjective. Let's not swear at children. Let's start there. Is that okay? Like, let's not scream F-bombs at children playing a game. Is that okay? We can all agree on a place to start. Let's not scream obscenities at children playing a game. If that's outside of your moral compass, like, you can leave.
Let me ask you something, Mike, Ravi, because again, I try to be in the solutions business. How much, and again, this is not to condone behavior. We're going to try to figure out where this comes from, like this hypersensitivity to needing to be heard and express displeasure. How much of that do you feel is kind of a byproduct of the pressure to get attention or be recruited or be talked about or to have hard work behind the scenes of said student athlete validated? Like, how much of that is like the spawn of, I just want my kid to, and then fill in the blank?
I think a lot of it. I've spent this much money on my kid, so
I'll say, but where is that pressure coming from?
I'm just trying to get behind.
I get it.
Peel back the onion a little bit.
But the pressure is self-imposed most of the time, right?
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I think
you don't think the pressure. The parents are putting a lot of that pressure on themselves and their kid.
Okay,
that's what I mean by
you mean adult?
100%.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like,
yes, 100%.
There shouldn't be any there's no inherent outside force that's saying if your kid is not recruited, then his time as an athlete in high school was totally wasted.
Okay, yeah.
That's not true.
Okay.
Now, parents may feel that way.
I understand.
Parents may have spent tens of thousands of dollars on AAU and training facilities and whatever for their kid that's 5'9" with an 18-inch vertical and is probably never going to play in the NBA, right? But that's a self-imposed pressure from the parents. That is not coming from the outside, right? Correct. That's where I have a problem with. Okay, yeah, there is a lot of pressure, and that might be what's causing a lot of this behavior, but 100%. They are the calls coming from inside the house.
100%. 100%. You're totally right. Ravi, you're totally right. I was just going to say the same thing.
I'm going to put that on the T-shirt.
the people that spend the money, the parents that spend the money for their kids or whatever, and their time and all this stuff, they want the attention and they want this and they want the kids recruited, and it's a lot. Like,
and half the time it's not even what the kids want.
Correct.
That's
Absolutely.
the real problem, right? Is they're not doing it for their kids. There are parents, and I know these parents, right? Because I coached college ball for almost a decade, right? I know there are parents that do everything to put their kids in a position to succeed, and whatever happens, and they're cool with it, right? But then there's the parents that feel like the kids owe them something for giving them those opportunities, and that's where it gets dicey.
My only pushback on that, because he's making a point, Mike, and I'm gonna let you go here to answer this, but sometimes I think it's peer to peer. Well, I see, Widener getting this attention. She's probably a bad example because she's good, but I see player blank getting this attention. I'm pretty good too. Like, what's wrong with me? Like, there is some of that too.
Some, sure,
right?
I don't think that's the core of the problem.
No, but I'm you know what I'm saying though? Like,
I do.
Well, I think when there's a little vitriol or Timmy Turtle comes home and he's like, Dad, Padilla and Sautter talked about, Steven, and like, why are they not seeing me? And that could be said to a parent like 2 or 3 times. And at some point, whatever the threshold is, when that parent sees you, or maybe they don't say anything to you, but that promotes the sentiment about how they feel you're doing your job. Like, that can be a thing too. Because as a parent, when you think your kid is going through that, like, your natural inclination, I mean, some parents will be like, hey man, just stay the course, do this, do that. But sometimes, like, not everybody is a perfect parent where they're experienced or savvy enough or have been through it where they can like reconcile it in the moment and say, hey, listen, Jerry, calm down, man. Like, that's Pete's deal. You handle your business. You stay in the lab. You do your thing. Don't worry about that. Like, there's not always going to be that perfect response either. Mm-hmm. So, like, I think we have to allow some grace for growth, but it's why we have to have these conversations, because it is, just look at all the films of people coming out of the stands and being like the last 3 or 4 years. We were in Wichita 5 years ago, and I watched Dan Eaton get tackled, right? Like, I mean, it's like, so this has kind of been brewing.
It's escalating.
It's kind of been brewing, but I think you have to get to what some of the cores of the issues are, so you can be preventative and not proactive.
I will say this for me and how I've always done it. And if people, hey, I don't talk about every single kid on every single team every day or every game I go to, and like, you just can't, right? Mm-hmm. So how I go about doing things when it comes to basketball, you will notice whoever the leading scorer is per quarter, if I'm live tweeting a game, that's who gets mentioned. And 9 times out of 10, I would say probably more like 99.999% of the time, at the end of the game, it is, if you scored in double figures, I mention you. Mm-hmm. Like, that's the like threshold. So it's not like there's an actual reason for it. It's not just like, oh yeah, I don't like that kid, I'm not going to talk about him. No, like it isn't anything of that. So that's just my way of doing things and my general rule about doing things. But it comes from home. Like, let's be honest. I sat there I'm guilty of it a little bit too. I sat there in my 7-year-old YMCA game, sitting in the corner, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like talking under my breath about like, but it's not, and it's more of like my kids play. It is, I'm disappointed in like, geez, she can't catch a basketball right now. Oh, like, it's a little frustrating. I just because of what I do, obviously in public figure, whatever that may be, I will never like stand up and yell and cuss at a ref and stuff like that. That just, if I'm ever that, I'll just retire from being in public eye 100%. One thing that I can say though is, if you notice inside of Pinnacle Bank Arena, You know who can't hear you cussing at them or yelling obscenities or whatever it may be?
The players.
The players and the referees and the coaches. They cannot hear you. Like, if you are 15 rows up or 10 or even 3, they probably can't hear you. It's kind of a long ways away. No one can hear you, but everyone can see you. Everyone can see you.
Let me ask
no
you,
one can hear you, though. No one can hear you.
Let's help. Let's continue to try to help parents here for a second. So my guy T-Mac, he brings up something interesting. And he says the cost for youth sports continues to rise and the expectations for parents continue to rise with it. He says when you're on bigger stages, is it basically okay to have a certain expectation level? You know what I mean?
No.
No?
No, because they're still children.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, Ravi. I
don't know about that.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Damon here. Like, if you're on a certain, if your kid makes a certain travel team or summer team or whatever it may be, there's a certain level of expectation that the coaching is going to be different.
And he's using track. He's using like regionals and nationals.
Yeah. Okay,
track,
you're talking
right?
about okay. We were talking about different things. You're talking about you expect if you're paying a certain amount, you expect a level of coaching.
Like if we're in Fayetteville and there's a $45 fee, and it's not weekend, it's by the day.
That's ridiculous, by the way.
Yeah. Remember that?
That's
so you expect the officiating.
So
to be at a certain level.
Do you think the officiating should be at a certain?
That's fair. Yes.
Okay.
I thought you were saying, okay, if I pay this amount of money, I should be able to expect this from my kid or from other kids. And that I don't think is true. If you want to say, hey, I'm paying X amount of money, I expect a certain amount of expertise from the coach, fair. Or I'm paying this amount of money for a tournament, I expect a certain level from the referees, fair. But you still have the issue of how you deal with it if those expectations are not met.
So, Mike, I'm curious, though. I mean, we saw some great, like DC West and Auburn go down to the wire. Ogallala gets it to 4 before Wahoo pulls. Like, there were some games yesterday, but in your deal, like your takeaway from yesterday was you're disappointed in people.
Right.
It was on. I couldn't believe, like, Sam tweeted it from the World Herald, and I was like, this must have really been a thing.
It was a thing.
Was it?
Like, oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Like I am ignorant.
Which stinks. It stinks because it overshadowed think about this.
There were good games yesterday.
There were several.
And it overshadows the entire day of everything that happened. Not only that, in that particular game, George Zebo had a career-high 19 points and had 8 straight in the fourth quarter to lead his team to coming back after being down 9 points in the fourth quarter. That's what people should be talking about. But here we are. We spent 18 minutes, 17 minutes talking about everything but what happened on the court, like the actual game.
That's because you were taken aback.
I know, but like, and it's not your fault. It's not my fault. It's not Ravi's fault that's what we had to talk about. But that's what we should have talked about for 17 minutes. 100%. Like today, we should have talked about it. It was a big deal. Like if the superintendent,
this isn't isolated. This is a growing problem.
Yeah. If the superintendent or president or whatever has to issue a statement, that's a big deal. Like, it's a big deal. Like, that's too much. Like, we're too over the top with it. Anyway, basketball games were great yesterday. Class B was very exciting. And how about Jacob's guy, Nate Kelly? That kid's good, man.
Hey, so I feel like we were having NEB preps all over again. He is so Team Kelly, but I know why, right? Some of those plays that he would call to get him he would have the decision making at the ends of games for him in the summer. And sure enough, it's like Kelly does it again.
Right. Yeah. I mean, he was great. And if you looked at warm-ups, you'd be like, Scotswood, no way, man. Like, they're small. They ain't got no size, none of that. And then they're good. Like they got some good they got some good players. B will be pretty interesting. You know, the first time Crete and Scott played, it was like 7-point game. It was close, and that was Crete fully healthy, and they're not now. So that will be very interesting. And you know, Brock Scholl, I don't know.
He's one of my. I'm a big.
He had to have broken his nose. I swear.
I'm a big fan. Big fan.
The nose was just dripping blood. Like if he didn't break it, I don't know what happened. But him to fight through that and play through that, had some big shots, hit a big three. He's been killing it. He's getting
some help. He's getting some help too, seeing the floor. Like he's pretty skilled passing the basketball yesterday too.
Right. Kyle Cannon had a big shot. If they can get outside perimeter shooting from their guards at Scott, like watch out, right? Like it's something pretty good. Now Crete they're old, they're strong, they're big, all those things. Like they're extremely well coached. I'm Team Siskey all the way. Have been for a while since he's been in Scottsbluff. But
my dark horse was eliminated yesterday. Now this was before I saw the draws, so I didn't know DC West was gonna have Auburn. But I was like, I really like, and I'm a little biased because I know some of the guys over there. But I'm like, I kind of like DC West. Brutal to see Auburn early, and again, another binder doing binder things. He was extra efficient yesterday.
Mav is having a great year. Wish we would have, actually been able to see how great of a year if they would put their statistics in Max Press. But that's for something else.
Hey, talk to Coach Weeks is your guy, man. So
he is, man.
that's a pick. You could pick up the phone and say, "Hey, Coach, man, I know you win a lot, but HBO, help a brother out."
He ain't never doing that. That guy scout like.
Coach Frank didn't like it either. I get it.
Yeah, but back to the conversation we had at the beginning, you're not helping your kids. You're kind of hurting them if that's your job. Anyway, the Auburn Ashland Greenwood game will be like, talk about like a war. Like defensively, both teams are so good, like really good, very well coached. It'll probably be low scoring and everyone will talk about shot clocks and whatever. But hey, before we do that, let's maybe look at how good they are defensively, because both teams are extremely good defensively. And that one. And then the first one to this morning in an hour and 40 minutes is Wahoo Concordia. And that's a little bit different styles there.
Glock continues to get to the free throw line, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He's not missing many of those either. He was 8 of 9 yesterday. What happens tonight in our preview? Is it an inevitable clash of the perceived Titans, 1 versus 2?
Hold on, Mike. Can you hang on? Can you come back in at the next break here?
Not really. I gotta get to the gym.
All right, hurry up. You got 30 seconds. Go.
Yeah. Bellevue West, Millard North. Obviously, that's what everyone wants to see. I don't know. Westside played pretty dang good, and I'm not sure Central defensively they can hang with them. And it was close with Bellevue West the last time they played. You could see one upset there.
All right, that's Mike Sautter, Hurrdat Sports. Make sure you follow along on his Twitter and NEB Preps for all the coverage of state basketball.
Jerome had to get going.
He did have to get going. I was hoping we could have him for another segment. That's okay, though. We will have more Hurrdat Sports coming up next. We're halfway through the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. And speaking of YouTube, you can watch our good friends, the Omaha Supernovas, on YouTube tonight. They're on, or not tonight. I keep doing that. Tomorrow night, March 9th, they're playing the Orlando Valkyries. Go to supernovas.com. There's a link to the YouTube page there where you can follow along with that match. That is tomorrow night at 6 p.m. our time. You can also go and get tickets for Thursday, March 14th or Saturday, March 16th. Those are the next 2 home matches for the Supernovas here at the CHI Health Center. You can also, maybe you want to get some merch you want to wear to the game. Go check that out as well. Next week, DB and I will give away a couple of tickets, 4 tickets to each of those matches.
The boss set the number at 4. Shane was shooting for 6.
Listen, 6 is a weird number of people to bring to a game.
Okay, man.
It's a weird number.
All right, there's the anger. Let the anger flow.
Well, I don't know. I came from family of 5, and maybe
I don't know. Did you have a friend?
Yeah, maybe there was a friend involved too.
When he was getting lifted on the playground.
I don't believe that.
There are so many varying opinions on this deal.
And we'll get to those.
I am flooded.
But go to supernovas.com where you can get tickets, merch. You can get the information on how to watch tomorrow night for the away matches as well. That's supernovas.com. Yeah, I mean, we appear to have touched on a bit of a nerve here. Surprise, surprise. Calling people out for needing to be better. And
it's not even like it. So at least for me, I don't know, man. I just think I'd like to find some solutions as opposed to just complaining about the problem because I know it exists.
So
I mean, I
here's the problem. Ironically, here's the problem with finding solutions, right? I'm really good at finding problems. You'll find this out about me. I try and find solutions too, but here's the problem with finding solutions to this specific issue. Is this is not an NSAA fix. This is not a high school level fix. This is a in people's individual homes and lives fix. And that's hard to implement on a wide scale because what the reality of the situation is, I believe, for the most part, is that parents have some unresolved issues. They're trying to either live vicariously through their kid or they don't understand that their kid doesn't owe them anything for existing. And they can't reconcile the fact that they may not get this. Listen, this isn't the corporate world. You may not get a return on your investment for the money you pour into a kid. That needs to be okay. And if you're not okay with that, you need to go to therapy because you have your own issues. But that's what the solution is. But you have to go to each individual parent and convince them of that. And that's a big ask. That's not a real scalable solution here, right? There's nothing the NSAA can do to be like, hey, can you stop swearing at children playing a game? I mean, you can have like a zero tolerance policy, sure, but then you'll have 4 people at your games. And it's really hard to implement because then you got, hey, we got to have security for all these games to keep out all these parents that have been swearing at children. Like there's a real issue in terms of finding a institutional solution to this.
Yeah, it's just varying opinions. I'm trying to catch up. Let's get to out of breath, Brian, real quick.
Brian, what's going on?
What's going on, fellas?
Hi, B.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday
Hey,
to
Ravi.
you.
What's up?
Ravi, hey, it's almost one of the first times I heard you on the phone before I called. I said, hey, you right, before I called in. So,
hey, even a blind squirrel, buddy.
But I agree with you. I just would use myself as an example because I've watched these parents. I even had a game one time too early in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning. Parents come out of town, Kansas City, 5 rows of stands, and they ready to fight. I'm like, is it the Starbucks or what? I don't know what it is, but I think.
And
really
sometimes you bring your kids to the game to watch too, right? Like that's got to be tough.
Yeah. So watching these parents out here has guided me to let my kid do it the old-fashioned way like we do it. You play whatever sport you want to play. I'm not pushing you into a sport. I'm not paying that money because I feel that when people pay that money, they think that somebody owed them something. I'm from the old school where you go out and you earn your spot on the court.
That's because that's become a thing. Like so, of all the replies so far, there's this correlation between money spent and expectations. Like that's kind of reoccurring.
The money spent because if you think about it, you're paying money for your kid to play, and you may be paying money for them to get extra training. Okay, well, they may not be genetically better designed to play than somebody. So no matter how much money you pay, it's going to always come down to this final fact. The coach got to pick who's going to play. And if the coach don't think your player is ready to play, I don't care how much money you paid, your kid is just not going to play. Your $100 million a year you paying is not going to increase your kid's size to 8'2". Okay, that's what it is. Eventually, at some point, somebody's going to have to make a decision that's not based on money, and parents who's paying money might not like it. And even on top of that, I'll be saying some of these parents, I don't know. From looking at it, it doesn't look like they have much athletic ability whatsoever, and then they expect that a miracle is going to happen with their child as far as their athletic ability. And I think parents need to come to a reality on that as well. Just look at it for what it is. Enjoy your time with your kid out there playing basketball. I've heard some of you parents out there. Y'all don't even want to be out there watching your kids play at a young age. Okay, so y'all just need to sit back and relax and enjoy it and stop taking it to that level because it's not that serious. You guys enjoy the rest of your day.
Appreciate
it, Brian.
I've got.
Oh, so you got some replies. Let's.
Well, one is interesting
Yeah.
just because, like, I know his personality. I've watched him coach. He used to coach one of my kids for a brief time, and I would say he's more on the demanding side than that.
Okay.
Not
As a
from-
coach or as
yes,
a. Okay.
yes. It's very, I would say, let's just say demanding.
Okay.
Okay. He's got a son that plays high level of college basketball. And it's weird because it would be easy for him to scapegoat something else. Like,
Mhm.
but like even on the fly, I think he understands his own personality. He's like, he was coached hard. I think he coaches hard. His son turns out to be really good. And I think there is a correlation, between parents' expectations and the kids' investment, because I think the real tricky part is
Mhm.
is to know real time if what you're willing to give and provide is met by their expectation level of what they want.
Mhm.
Sometimes those things don't go together.
The parents' expectation level.
Yes,
Okay.
you have to ask
So what,
your
you're
son or
willing-
daughter. You're like, hey, if I'm like, hey, Mallory, like, do you really want to go to 3v3,
Mhm.
go to skills training, then go to cryotherapy for recovery?
And some kids do want that.
Or do you think, or is it me that thinks that's what's best for you? So that's what I'm going to tell you to do.
Mhm.
Like, I think you have to have that dialogue.
Here's the problem. Another problem that's hard to fix on an institutional level. I think most parents and children don't have the type of relationship to have that kind of
I
conversation.
don't know, man. It sounds short-sighted. I mean, just like, you don't think the majority, and I'm not holding you to it. It's just a conversation.
Mhm.
You don't think parents are like, hey, you don't think they're having those dialogues?
I don't.
Or do you think there's just a certain age, well, we know best, so this is what it's going to do. You'll thank me later.
So there's both, right? Up to a certain age, I think it's a we know best thing. But the problem is you have to foster a relationship where your kid feels like they can be honest with you, because a lot of kids, and I speak from my own experience, and I had great parents and I still felt this way sometimes. Like, a lot of kids feel like they are trying to find what their parent wants to hear from them rather than the actual truth. And you have to start that relationship and start making it clear that they can tell you the truth.
It's hard, man.
And listen, I don't have kids, so I'm not even telling you it's easy.
I'm going to say this out loud just because it's who I am. I'll use Caleb.
Mhm.
Okay. I'm going to tell you the absolute real time in my household.
Mhm.
On March the whatever today is, he could be 40% better physically, like just from a attribute standpoint,
Mhm.
if he would have listened to me earlier.
Sure.
Okay.
Mhm.
So there was like 2 years where I had to really talk to him about this and process through, and we had to have some really, for me, they were hard. For him, it's just like, this is my dad. I love him.
Mhm.
Which is why I'm excited for him to train. But what I got in return is an amazing relationship.
Because he trusts you.
Because I allowed him to go through
To
at
be
his,
honest with you.
He's basically going to say, I'll get there when I'm going to get there. Like, I can't wait to just train sport specific, whatever. And it bugged me for 3 years.
But you
because
allowed him.
I wanted more. But it came at a price.
It did.
It came with a price.
And
So
that's
it's not
hard,
as easy as you're saying.
I don't think it's easy.
It hurt me to the core.
I don't think it's easy, and I would never claim because I don't have kids.
It hurt me to the core.
But long term.
But I'm happy that we're close.
We're wrapping up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi, Lulla. We're having a spirited discussion about parents and trying to do what they think is right. But one thing that we all know is right when you're driving, it's hands on the wheel, eyes and focus straight ahead. As a driver, you've got one job, and that is to drive even if you're taking your kids to some high school tournament, we're going to swear at some children. You still got one job. You got to drive there and get them safely. This message, well, most of that message, part of that was me, but this message from the NDOT Highway Safety Office. So we were talking off air a little bit and continuing to have this conversation because you brought up a really interesting point with your own family, your own situation, which I appreciate you going there because I know it's not easy for you, right?
I hurt my own feelings.
Ouchie.
You seem like you're feeling very hurt right now. And so we were talking off air, and I go, your relationship with Caleb is better because
it's amazing
because of what you went through, right? And you go, but it hurt me because he wasn't choosing to do what you thought was best.
Mm-hmm.
And so my question for you was, why did you think what you thought was best in terms of what was your end goal that your path was leading to? Because the motivation on what you think is best is really important.
Yeah, this is hard. I think real time. So you go back to I remember he didn't play football as like a fifth grader.
Mm-hmm.
And we because our organization went defunct or whatever, and he sat out. And I remember that's the first time I was like, oh my gosh, I'm afraid he's not going to like football anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's just going to go away from him. Because at that point I was like, I've seen this too often. I've seen a lot of 6-foot guys think that they're going to be basketball players. And
mm-hmm. You and I had this exact conversation about Caleb.
It just doesn't work. But up until that point, he liked football more. I'm just being honest.
You like basketball better than football.
I'm sure some parents are going to be able to relate here. And again, this is about preventative measures, so you don't have to be reactionary. But I had watched a lot of other people,
mm-hmm.
right? So I had to make a decision. I was like, okay, he really likes basketball. And he was around some coaches that I felt like could instill some things I wanted him to have.
Mm-hmm.
Mental toughness, wasn't going to be given much.
Things you wanted to have as a person, not as an athlete.
As a person,
yes.
100%. And
I want to make sure we're clarifying
this is what
there.
this is going to boil down to.
Yes.
Because it's easy for me to sit here and act like, oh, this is how I drew it up. But there were several struggles along the way.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I want to get to, the core of why you were struggling.
Some real struggles along the way. So I'm like, oh, man, okay, it's what he wants to do. Let's let it happen. And, you're going broke and mortgaging the farm, and he's enjoying it. But I wanted him around Alvin as much as possible, because there are some character traits that Alvin has that I don't.
Mm-hmm. And that you wanted Caleb to be around.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Again, as a person.
Yeah. I wanted, correct.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted him around him. And same thing happened in football.
Mm-hmm.
When he went over low bikes, and I wanted him around Ryan,
mm-hmm.
Terry. And he picked Ryan too, right? It was like, and I remember Ryan didn't really want him. He's just like, man, do DB a solid.
Mm-hmm.
We got a good team, because he had some fellas. And over time, as he figured out Caleb was pretty okay, and vice versa, I'm like, see that, but it was hard for me to watch.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't help out with the staff. Meanwhile, he'd go back and we'd split time with basketball. These camps are coming up, and he didn't want to camp.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to go play basketball. And in my head, I'm like, hey, man, I sat him down. He's 8th grade going into 9th grade. I said, I know you're competitive. I know you want to be well-rounded. I said, but we got to start to train to get the outcome that you want.
Mm-hmm.
And we would have these really in-depth, deep talks. And he would express what he wanted, and I would express what I wanted. And I would say, okay, go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember just being hurt. Right? I'm like, come on, man.
Why were you hurt though? Was it that he didn't trust you, or that he was choosing an option?
A little of both real time.
Okay.
I don't get to fast forward to today and be like,
100%.
So real time, it was a little of both.
Yeah.
Why won't he just listen to me? And he's not being the best version of himself. He's spreading himself
in
too
football.
thin. He's just spreading himself too thin.
Right?
Yeah.
So correct me if I'm wrong here. I'm going to try and sum it up here. Part of the reason you were hurt and you thought what was best for him was because you wanted him to maximize his ability to become a good football player.
Just as an athlete.
Okay.
He couldn't train and lift because he's always doing
He's always
something.
playing a sport. He's always
Yeah.
in season.
And I remember, so there's two things. I talked to DJ about when his kids stopped deciding to play baseball, and Clester when he said Keegan stopped trying to play basketball. He's like, they're going to grow, they're going to get good rest. So I was talking to Mac, like Danny Noonan, and I was talking to all these guys, right? Just taking notes and okay, how does this fit my personality? And so, I'm like, he's going to be behind. He's going to be behind. You're like this untapped thing. He's going to be behind. He's going to be behind. But in the meantime, we were having these great conversations, spent a lot of time on the road together. We travel, whatever. Fast forward. And then so at the end, it was like awesome. Like, what is one thing Nebraska likes about him? He's a blank slate. Never really trained.
Tons of upside still.
Way upside.
Yes.
Right. But and
a multi-sport athlete.
And
which means he's got different movement patterns.
And he and I like have these amazing talks, and I'm like, it's all worth it now. But
because he trusts you now.
Oh, 100%.
In a way he wouldn't have if you forced him to do.
We can talk about anything.
Yes.
But it was miserable going through it. Which is why I'm cool. So there are some of these parents, right?
No, this way's harder. The way that you did it is harder.
And it hurt me.
Yes.
I struggled emotionally.
Like, it is harder.
Like, it truly hurt me. But one of the reasons, like, I'm patient with parents that people think I shouldn't like, right? There's an O-lineman at a school that we play against. And I kind of got to be okay. I don't know if friends is the word, but I talked to his dad, right?
Yeah.
And I see what he wants for his son. And I'm not, I think some people want me to be like, well, is this? And I'm like, nah, he just wants the best. And as long as his kiddo is still vibing with what he wants to do, like, I'm for it, right? Similar school. Another, this was going to be a confrontation, but another one of the players came up to the school to talk to me. He's like, let's hash this out. And I said, you know what? At the end of the day, this is going to sound funny. You have some traits with your son that I admire because you openly advocate for him, right? I didn't do that sometimes for my kids, whether it was Maya or Kayla. Like, so I'm not as hard or mad or mean to people as some other people want me to when they're not like of the same organization or whatever. Because I just want, there's a part of me that gravitates towards moms and dads that are willing to be vocal for their kids' best interests. And I'm not always saying it's right. Sometimes it's to the kid's detriment.
Absolutely.
So I'm not saying that. I'm being honest about me. Like, I'm telling you, there's parts of them that I wish you
would have done a little more of.
I would have done more of, but it turned out okay.
So here's the question, though, because this is where I think things diverge a little bit.
Yeah.
Is what if Caleb had decided, you know what, I do want to be a basketball player? Because just being totally honest here, you look at his size, you look at his frame, maybe he's able to get a lower D1 offer.
Yeah. Well, we thought, like, I was like, Northwest Missouri State. And I was like,
because he's like, he's 5'11", 6 foot.
Yeah. He's 72 inches on the dot.
So he's 6 foot, right on the dot, right? Which is not usually a high major guard, right? That's not, and so let's say Northwest Missouri State. That's a great example. A really good D2 program, right?
They're amazing.
Great D2 program. That's where Creighton got Ryan Hawkins from. They're a perennial great program. What if he could have played D1 football, but he's like, I love basketball, Dad. I want to go play D2 basketball.
That would have been hard.
That's where it gets really tricky. And I think that's when there's a disconnect because, yes, you went through the hard part, but you still kind of ended up where you wanted.
And there were lots of people that I would talk to. Like, I would talk to, like, obviously Rizak and Nolan Urban and some of these guys. And I remember I reached out to, I don't think you know him, but I reached out to Tim Ziola, right? This was over social media. And I was like, I was going to pick his brain about some things, and I ended up chickening out, right? And I'm just being honest.
No, I know.
And I didn't like, but there are lots of people along the way. I can think of probably 30 kids that we play with or against, where I'm like, I think people that in my sphere of influence want me to be different towards them. But one of the reasons that I want to rally for kids or for parents, is because every now and again, even though we may be on different ends of the spectrum or we may be opponents or whatever, there are just these little pieces that they show that I'm like, man, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Now it worked out for me.
It did.
But that would have been cool to like be able to do real time that I wasn't capable of doing. So I see it as kind of a cool thing in other people that I wasn't able
for sure
to do for myself.
And that's where it gets really challenging, because I think
it's the open dialogue with your kids, though.
Right. But and I think that's where we started this at. I don't think a lot of parents ever develop that relationship with their kid, where maybe they think they've got a good relationship with their kid, but their kid doesn't feel comfortable telling their parent the truth because they know how much money they've spent on travel baseball or whatever, or they know how much it means to them. Like, I give Caleb as much credit as you for being like, yeah, Dad, I don't really want to do that right now. Because that's hard for a kid to say to their parent and know that their parent's going to listen. The guy we're going to listen to coming up next is Nick Bahe here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Kicking off hour number 3 with a fire open from our man Shane Schillerberg over there. We're on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. That's DB. I'm Ravi, Lulla. We are joined now by the one and only Nick Bahe, Fox Sports analyst. You know, Nick, he left out my favorite thing that you do, the Chick and Nick pod. I mean, come on now.
Come on. So let's take a little time to invest in a Google search, people.
Nicholas Allen, man, how you doing, bud? You getting ready? You have Mountain West, right?
So I just got back from the pit, had New Mexico, and so this weekend I actually got Michigan and Nebraska. So Nebraska's final regular season tilt on BTN Sunday afternoon, and then I am putting on my Westwood One hat for the remainder of the season. I will be Big Sky Championship in Boise next.
Yeah, you're in Boise. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and then America East, which will likely be Vermont on that Saturday. So
who doesn't love a catamount?
Catamount, baby. Doesn't get any better.
Yeah. So let me real quick. You're talking about the Michigan Nebraska thing, because I want to pick your brain on basketball in general, especially with 360 and you getting young kids developed and you seeing the peak end game of college basketball, right? So you got rain, so we're going to take advantage of it. Sleepy, right? It's daylight savings time. It's Ann Arbor. It's senior day. Nebraska's riding some emotions. Would you rather be Michigan and maybe wanting to get this season over, or would you rather be Nebraska knowing you control your own destiny and you're probably the better team? Who's got when you look at the emotional pendulum of what they're dealing with, who would you rather be in this one?
Well, I think it's probably easier to, I mean, this is kind of like a weak comment, but it's probably easier to lace them up when you got quote unquote nothing to lose. If you're Michigan, you know, like you go out there and swing away, you play a little bit more free and loose because you basically do have nothing to lose. But I will always choose Nebraska's situation 100 times out of 100, where you have put yourself in a position where you have legitimate consequences and games that matter this time of year. So I will absolutely choose Nebraska in this spot. And this game, you know, you almost take the first. Nebraska beat the what out of Michigan in Lincoln.
Yeah.
And you almost take that film and throw it away because they didn't have Doug McDaniel. And Doug McDaniel completely changes Michigan's team. Don't get me wrong, this is a team that has underperformed and had a rough year. But Doug McDaniel is really, really a talented dude. He makes all their decisions. He's got the ball in his hand. So this game will be interesting. Like, I think Michigan's going to provide some issues for Nebraska in this one. But for me, DB, I'm always going to take the team that's put themselves in position where they are legitimately playing for something. So I'll take Nebraska.
Nick, what are Nebraska's stakes in this position in your mind? Because I think most people think Nebraska's played their way in to the tournament already, that they probably don't need the Michigan win. And I don't know does beating Michigan on the road get you from the 10 seed line to something else? Like, what are the stakes for Nebraska here in your mind?
Yeah, I think my gut tells me that they could lose this game, and I just think they probably need one more win, and they're for sure in. I even think there's a world where they could lose on Sunday, lose in the first round of the Big Ten tournament, and still likely get in. Now, that scenario could potentially be meaning they're going to Dayton. But I think as you've watched them over the past month and you've seen different bracketologist projections, you've seen them more going in they've been going in the right direction where they've been getting into that 8-9 game rather than going in the wrong direction in the 10-11, first four in, last four out, whatever sort of projection. So to me, I think Nebraska's in. You certainly don't want to leave anything up to chance because there could be some bid stealers out there. You know, UNLV in the Mountain West Conference, like they're someone that could win the Mountain West, steal a bid. I even look at a team like Oregon. Oregon could mess around. Dana has done that all the time. Like he is a conference tournament magician. Like they could go and win the Pac-12, right? Like so the thing that is the great variable with this, Ravi, is that like there are other things that are happening around you in college basketball. It's not just Nebraska in a vacuum. There are a bunch of other variables with this thing. I think Nebraska gets one more win. They are for sure in. You'd certainly want to try and keep that resume as clean as possible, but I think they're in pretty good position.
Let's go over to your alma mater as alma mater. I always say that wrong. I think they should spell it. I think they should spell it different, Nick. Little trepidation, and I mean I get it. It's a Dixon thing, but I don't love Villanova as a team. Creighton's got a ton to play for. I mean, at the end of the day, for all the criticism and angst, they could be a 2 seed, which is their preseason prediction, second in the Big East. They will have met expectations. How do you kind of see that matchup with what's at stake?
Yeah, I think both these teams are the kinds of teams that when they get outside of the Big East, they're a little bit more challenging to deal with because they are unique to coach against. I do think the way Villanova is built is not a great matchup for Creighton. Creighton struggles with fives that can step out, that drags Kalkbrenner away from the basket. Creighton struggles with teams that can switch almost every screen. And Creighton struggles with teams that are big and physical across the board. I think there's a reason that this team beat Creighton in Omaha in December. That game feels like it was an eternity ago. That was the night that Doug McDermott got his jersey retired. That feels like that was like a long time ago. But no, I'm with you, DB. I mean, this team, they're 6-1 in their last 7 games. I feel like the arrow is trending up. I love how they're playing. Even that loss at St. John's, this might be in the excuse factory, but I thought Creighton got pretty good shots. I thought St. John's hit a lot of mid-range tough twos, which is what, defensively they're kind of willing to live with. So that they hammer Seton Hall. I get they played a Tyler Kolek-less and Oso Ighodaro-less Marquette team, but I thought they went out there and played well, in particular in the second half. I just like where this team is trending. And with the Kolek situation, there's a world where Creighton could kind of leap Marquette and get that 2 seed. So they have a lot to play for. I'm worried about this game, though, for Creighton tomorrow. There's certainly Villanova. They're playing for their tournament lives. And, just from a matchup standpoint, it's a tough one for Creighton, but I really, really like where this Creighton team's at right now and how they're playing.
As Neptune referred to it as their Super Bowl.
Yeah, how about that?
Nick, how have you looked at the progression of Stephen Ashworth through the course of this season? I know it's easy to look at the box scores and say, hey, offensively, he's playing a lot better. But what really jumped out to me was his defensive performance, specifically against UConn, kind of is where I really started to notice. It got to the point where I was literally just watching him run around on defense off the ball because I was so impressed with the way he was navigating all the screens they were trying to put him through. What have you made of his adjustment to a higher level of play? And it really seems like his season's taken off in the last 10 to 12 games.
And I think Creighton's season has taken off, coinciding with Ashworth starting to get it rolling too. 2 quick things. Number one, I do get a little bit, there's some people that are like, I want all the apologies for the Stephen Ashworth hate early in the year. He wasn't playing well, guys.
Yeah. Like, it wasn't good. Like, just because he's good now doesn't mean he was good then. You know?
Like, I mean, I think like we want to like stamp something and be like, this is how it is at all times. Like, no, he wasn't playing well. Now he's playing well. Like, and so the conversation shifts. And guess who would be the first one to probably tell you, yeah, I wasn't playing well? It'd be Stephen Ashworth. Yep. He wasn't shooting the ball well. He wasn't defending at a really high level. In fact, he couldn't close certain games on the floor early in the year, and now he is. But to your point, Ravi, I think the interesting thing that with his season is I look at Stephen Ashworth, and even though he's an offensive-driven player, I think he found confidence on the defensive end of the floor, and that confidence that he found on that end of the floor got him going offensively. So it's a great lesson for all players, where if you can find confidence, and basketball is a confidence sport. If it doesn't have to always be scoring, it doesn't always have to be making a shot, getting a bucket. I think Stephen Ashworth started to do a nice job chasing shooters, went from Alamir Dawes to Cam Spencer to Quincy Olivari at home. Like, he did a good job taking those guys out. It filled up his confidence bucket, and that got him in a better mental space. And then the reality is he was too good of a shooter to stay quiet for this long. And he started to kind of settle in now, and water's kind of found its level here with his ability to shoot the ball. I also think it's hard. I think we're all trying to figure out what are the expectations for transfers when they come in to a brand new system. Like, what is realistic to expect of them to come in and be awesome right away? Like, if you stop and think about it, it's probably not realistic for us to expect Stephen Ashworth to hit the ground running, put up 20 a game, and be totally comfortable right away. It was probably going to take some time, and it did. But what I like about Ashworth is that his approach never changed. His body language stayed positive. When I would see him at shoot-arounds, he was the same dude. He's the same guy in November that he is now in terms of his day-to-day. And that consistency and his maturity probably serve him well. But, yeah, I think it all starts on the defensive end, Ravi. Like, I think he found confidence there, and then that got him in a better place offensively.
Along those thoughts, I'm going to go to Nebraska real quick before I get to high school and state. You mentioned something with Ashworth kind of, water finding its level in transfers. And I think this is part of the reason that some teams have kind of caught up with Marquette, right? They started out with like the original 5. And when you're playing against other schools where guys have been on the move, it takes some time. So I think some things have leveled out. Conversely, Nebraska, as their pieces have started to gel, they've had an ascent from new faces in new places. When you look at this team and their scout, is it what makes them so difficult to defend night in, night out when it could be any one of 5 guys that get you, right? They don't need rank. They don't need Casey all the time. Like, it's always somebody different. How did that blend work to get this product?
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? Where the conventional blueprint is like, get a stud, maybe 2 studs, rely on them every night, fill in the pieces around them, jump ball, here we go. And that's just not how Nebraska has been. So if you stop and put yourself in Juwan Howard's shoes or an opposing coach's shoes, like somebody in the NCAA tournament's going to draw this team, and in preparing for them, there isn't necessarily one guy that you can circle and say, we have to take away this guy. I mean, even a guy like Tominaga leads them in scoring. There's been games where Tominaga has kind of been a non-factor, right? And they've still been just fine. I think the thing that helps them is they are unique in the fact that Rink Mass can step out. That makes it tough for them for opposing teams to defend. Fred Hoiberg does run some really creative, good actions in his 5-out stuff, and Tominaga is a challenging guy to chase around. You think you get it, you think you're close enough, you think you know how to guard a good shooter. You ain't seen nobody like Tominaga, man. You don't understand it. Like, you don't get what it's really like to chase that guy around. And then defensively, they're unique, Damon. Like that, the no middle stuff. They force everything to the baseline. They flood to the ball. Any drive baseline, you're getting trapped. Any post up, you're getting trapped. like if you handle those things, you're going to get open jump shots, kind of like what Creighton did. And some of the teams that have beaten them have been able to handle those things and get open looks and knock them down. But it's different. Like it's harder for teams to deal with it because, they're kind of inviting you to the baseline and you drive down there and all of a sudden you're like, oh boy, I got 3 dudes on me here and this isn't good. So they're a unique team to go against offensively. And certainly with how they're built from a balance standpoint, 5 out, Tominaga's movement, they're tough to deal with offensively as well. I've been so impressed with what Fred Hoiberg has done. When I watched him practice in October, I really liked the team, but I left going like, can you do this without a true point guard? Can you do it? And they have. They've somehow done it.
Be curious because there's some teams we bring up like Illinois and some other teams that don't have the point. But
Yeah.
let me ask you this because you had a great tweet or this was probably just yesterday when I saw it. You said, the Nebraska Boys State Tournament always, drums up emotions, and you kind of walk through your journey. I thought it was interesting. You thought your sophomore team was your best team, and you didn't get there. That had to be kind of humbling, but
Yep.
a lot of emotions. We had Sautter on earlier, and there's been some interesting behavior, and it's a lot of pressure, and we had a couple of fights, and man, you're training young people at the youngest level. You're uniquely entwined with basketball at the highest level from a collegiate standpoint. Man, your brother's a good example. It's a tricky world to navigate, man. Like, what are you seeing and kind of what do you recommend?
Yeah, I mean, this is I got to navigate landmines when I talk here a little bit.
It's hard. You've been trying to be really honest. Like we said, it's hard, man. It's hard.
I mean, first of all, I think what we're doing at Shoot 360 is we try to be a little bit of like we try to be a part of the solution or a part of like the good of youth basketball. Like at the end of the day, I want kids to come in and fall in love with the game. Like we're not coming. I don't care if you ever play a minute for your high school team or play a minute. Of course, we want you to, right? Mm-hmm. Like we want you to maximize whatever that is. But I just want you to come in, improve, fall in love with the game, be in a culture of encouragement, and leave 6 inches taller than when you walked in the facility every single day. And I think if I had to sum up kind of like, this is a oversimplification, and when you paint with the broad brush, you get yourself in trouble. But like, I just think if you zoom way out, Damon, and think about everything high school basketball, there used to be an investment in team and school, and now there's more of an investment on individuals. Does that make sense? Like, people are way more into them. Mm-hmm. Than they are the we of it, the school, growing up and dreaming about playing for a certain school and being in a certain school district or whatever. And I think when that's the case, when you lose the sense of the group and you start focusing on the individual, the ramifications and the domino effect of that can be troubling for the parents. It can be troubling for the players. And certainly it becomes a challenging thing for the coaches to have to navigate, where you got people that care about themselves first, more so than the program or the team's success. And when that's the case, that's a tough one to deal with. And that's where like some of my emotions aren't from the state tournament aren't necessarily because of that. They're just because of falling short there, right? Getting to the finals and losing 2 straight years. That the sophomore year, number one team, we get upset by Bell West in the quarterfinals and we still finish the season ranked number 1. I mean, like, how did that make sense? Like everybody knew we were the best team. We just didn't get it done. So those emotions are a little bit different than maybe what we're talking about, but it's certainly the culture around basketball is in an interesting place right now.
You know what's funny though, you guys, is because we sit with high school recruiting, like in football and stuff, like that. It's not predatory behavior, but like the individualism, like from adults about young people, it's all the way in high school football now, in a way that used to just be the dirty little, oh, that's just basketball. That's just AAU. And it seems like the last handful of years, it's crept into football as well, which makes me think it's not sports specific.
It's a societal issue.
It's a society thing.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. And I know for me and everybody, and this is what's hard. Everybody's situation is different. I don't necessarily, until I understand somebody else's shoe, what their situation was, it's hard to necessarily totally throw stones. But like my first dream I ever had as a basketball player was to play for Lincoln Southeast. That was my first, that was it, man. Like growing up, like John Bowling, J.R. Edwards, Corey Adams, like I was in Prosh, and these guys were like gods to me, and I'll never forget the first time I got my Southeast jersey. I went home and I put it on. I was looking at myself in the mirror and I was like, dog, look at this boy. Look at me, and I just don't know if people feel like that, like even for me, my uncle Chip Bahe was the head coach at Lincoln Northeast. There was only one time Chip ever talked to me about transferring. It was in 8th grade. Chip, in 8th grade, we were driving. We were in the car together. He opened up Northeast Gym during Christmas break to let me shoot as an 8th grader. We're driving home. Chip goes, Nick, I'll say this once. I'll never say it again. If you come to Northeast, you play a lot and you play right away. I kind of looked at it, I nodded and I said, okay. But in my mind, I was like, the idea of going and playing for my uncle at Northeast was like, what are you talking about? And listen, Northeast, they were the team in the late 90s. Damon knows that.
Yeah, Alton Mason and then Helmstetter, though they had
Alton Mason, all those guys, like those dudes, that was the team. So, but I just don't know how much there's that, like just that true love for your school. And when you really love your school and you really love something bigger than you, I just think like your priorities fall in place when that's the case.
That is so, and I'm telling you, Nick, those are the teams that win.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. The West Sides of football, the Bellevue West of basketball, the Millard Norse. And that's why, see, I don't knock there's another team coming, like at Millard South. I'm like, those guys are really buying into the school. Like, once that starts to happen, you give yourself a chance.
And ironically,
I'm 100% with you.
And ironically, the thing that starts this all, I think, is the individualism starts from wanting to get recruited, but the kids that end up winning and being on those teams end up getting recruited, right?
Yeah.
So we kind of end up at the place you want to be anyway, but you take a different path to get there. I think we talked about this a ton this morning. I just think there's been such a focus put on, hey, if you don't get recruited, then your sports career was a failure, that we've totally lost sight of all the other important and good things that sports bring to the table.
And you guys, but both you guys have recruited and get it, and Damon, you coach and you get it. Like, I think I think we don't give college coaches near the credit they deserve, that they can watch film and it's not like, EJ Barthel just goes, okay, let's pull up Texas's top rushers and whoever the top like yards per carry, those are who I'm going to recruit. No, they can watch film. And I say all that to say people get too caught up in stats. Coaches can watch tape, whether you average 8 points. I can watch a game and there might be a dude that averages 7 points a game at a young level, and I'm like, that's the best player on the floor. And there might be someone that's averaging 20 a game, but I see flaws or holes. So I think we also chase stats and we chase these things that maybe back when Damon and I were getting recruited, like it was harder. Like there was someone that could slip through the cracks, right? Like that was a real thing. It was because of huddle and all the different camps and different stuff. Like there was a world where a Damon Benning in Omaha could have somehow been like, man, I didn't get a chance to see Damon in high school. I didn't get a chance to, like, now it's pretty hard for Caleb Benning to fall through the cracks, right? Like it's harder now just because of like the amount of tape, the amount of exposure people get. So I just think we also got to trust that if like you can play, they're going to find you.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't necessarily mean you have to put up certain stats. Like these coaches are going to be able to find you.
That's Nick Bahe, Fox Sports basketball analyst. I'm glad we got a shout out to the one and only Chip Bahe this morning. He,
the funniest story I heard all morning, though.
He was.
I'm gonna let him know. Recruiting started way before the 2020s.
He was at Miller North when I was there, so I love Chipper. There was a poster of you in a Kansas jersey in his office when I was there.
That's my guy. I love it.
Nick, we appreciate it. We'll talk to you again soon. Thanks,
See you guys. Thank you.
We got more Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next.
Ooh.
We're back here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla, and I want to tell you about our friends at Warhorse Sportsbook and their $1 million perfect bracket challenge. We're getting closer and closer to tournament time, which means we're getting closer and closer to your opportunity to win $1 million with a perfect bracket. All you have to do, be a Warhorse Rewards member and earn entries between now and the 14th by placing a $50 sportsbook wager or getting 50 points on slots and racing. Each one of those gets you an additional entry and an opportunity to win $1 million. Even if you don't get a perfect bracket, 1 million.
I wonder how many brackets it would take you to figure it out.
A lot. It would take a lot.
Over under 100.
Oh, over, way over. But, it only takes one. That's the key. Even if you don't get $1 million, though, still $10,000 in prizes for the top brackets, including weekly prizes as we move throughout the tournament. Make your picks between Selection Sunday and March 20th and validate your entries at the casino in Lincoln, Warhorse Casino in Lincoln, between March 18th and March 24th. If you need more details, go to warhorsecasino.com. and they will have a full list of details and house rules. Warhorse Sportsbook, no bets, no glory.
.com. It is 1912 Wahoo. For those of you wanting an update.
Like the year 1912?
Yes.
Titanic about to go down?
Yep. 3 from Omaha Concordia to cut it to 4. Number 1 seed Concordia.
I've got a little soft spot for Omaha Concordia in my heart.
Yeah, me too.
Because that was my first ever coaching job.
Really?
Was at Concordia High School.
Nice.
I was the varsity assistant.
Literally 64 seconds from my house. My old house.
And we probably, that was 2010, 11, I think was my first year there.
Yeah.
That
was about,
or my only year there. I only spent a year there.
About when I was getting ready to be out of that house.
We were. I was
just saying.
I was only there for a year. Dan Masters, now at the NSAA, was my
good dude.
Was my head coach there, and
baseball. He's doing a lot with baseball.
Yeah, he's an administrator at the NSAA, doing good things over there. But yeah, so I have a soft spot for Concordia. They didn't have the nice gym when I was there, so that I'm a little jealous.
Matter of fact, I saw Dan last year at the state basketball because he helps there too as well.
Oh, so he's around quite a bit.
And this was when we were over at the Devaney. I think I was watching Central City. I think it was Central City and Ogallala last year.
No, he's a good guy. He took a chance on me. I appreciate Coach Masters.
DB for Central City.
Big Central City guy.
100%. Was Brett might have been gone. You didn't see it. Did you see Brett?
Brett who?
Zickman Saturday?
I don't think so.
He's the second biggest guy in the room.
After Ryan?
Dwayne Harris. And you didn't see Dwayne.
I didn't see. I was there. I was gone for Dwayne. Dwayne and T. Frage would have crushed me for my high noons.
100%.
Listen, I'm a diabetic. I like that low sugar.
Tommy Frazier.
Dude, he was hilarious.
Like those low sugar drinks.
You guys were both coming from the Creighton game.
Yeah, I was there a little longer because I stuck around for senior day stuff.
He and Dwayne, they went together.
As many people know, Tommy Frazier, very big Creighton fan.
He actually is.
I know, but it's funny because it bothers Nebraska fans.
I think we're past that.
I don't know.
Aren't we?
Nebraska basketball fans are not past it.
Oh, shoot. My bad.
They feel some kind of way, and I think it's funny.
My bad.
Listen, me and T. Frazier just both like good basketball. What are you going to do? Which Nebraska is good basketball this year. I got to give them credit, but there's been some dry spells in the past.
Did you get the sense Nick was a little concerned or no?
On Michigan? Yeah, I thought so.
Because of McDaniel?
Yeah. Which
he does play at home.
He changes the equation, right? He's really
the best player.
He's a really good ball player. Obviously only plays at home in one of the weirdest situations I've ever seen in college basketball.
I don't understand it, but
I don't even a little bit. It smells fishy. I'm just gonna be honest with you. It smells weird. Something doesn't pass the smell test.
Does Juwan Howard make it past the Big Ten tournament?
I gotta say no. I don't think so.
Mm.
Here's the problem, right?
No.
Is Juwan Howard has a couple things going against him. Number one, he's been bad, right? Like it's gone the wrong direction on him after starting off pretty good. I mean, starting off really good, right? To be fair,
Yep.
It's gone the wrong direction on him, and he's had some unlikable incidents where, whether it's fighting Greg Gard, handshake line, like he's had some pretty public dust ups, right? You can't be bad and unlikable. Like those are, you got to be one or the other if you're keeping a job.
That's the rule of okay. Note to self.
You know what I mean?
Note to self. I got you.
Like if you're really good, like I used to say this about Bo Pelini all the time, right? If you're going to act like Bob Knight, you got to win like Bob Knight, right?
Yeah.
And Bo won a lot, but he didn't quite win enough to justify the personality, at least in
talking to a ghost.
Apparently the decision makers' minds, right?
Yeah, you talking to a ghost?
Like if you're going to swing on a ref, you better be like Woody Hayes,
Mhm.
right? Like you better win some national titles and things like that. You can't swing on a ref and lose 4 games every year. That's not a thing that you can do.
I know it's weird, but I actually understood that.
Understood him swinging on the ref?
Yeah.
It's ironic considering what we've been talking about today.
I didn't condone it. I said I understood it.
Listen, I'm not saying right, wrong, or different. I'm just saying if you're going to be unlikable, you better win a lot.
I think that I don't know if that had as much to do with being upset with the refs as much as wanting his athletic director's attention.
His situation, sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I get it. And that's fine.
Yeah.
But my point is, if you're going to be unlikable, you better win a hell of a lot of ball games.
And note to self.
And Juwan Howard has not won a lot of ball games in the last few years.
Yeah.
Not enough to justify. Now, I know he made the Sweet 16 run, even though they only won a handful of games in 2022. But last year, it's been heading in the wrong direction since 21, right? And they fell off the cliff this year at 8-22. I know he's had the health problems, so maybe you want to try and give him a pass, but it's been trending in the wrong direction. And I'm just going to be honest with you, 3 conference wins, that's hard to justify in any situation.
Yeah, it is.
You better be either in year 1 or have a clear-cut plan on how to make it better, and you still better be likable, right? That's where you get in trouble with your Juwan Howard. I don't see how he survives this
Gonna be
as a
interesting.
coach. Hopefully, as
just
a
doesn't
person, he
seem
survives.
like a Ward guy.
No,
for his athletic director, but I mean we'll see.
No.
And who knows? Maybe we'll be looking back at the decision whether it really was or wasn't for Coach Schwaberg and Trev. May turn out to be a pretty good decision.
I mean, it
from last year
has aged well so far.
Right.
Thank you, guys.
Well, thank you, Coach.
If Juwan Howard is let go or moves on or whatever, maybe they give him the opportunity to say it's health problems because he's had health problems. Maybe.
And those are legit.
No, they are. The health problems are legit, but maybe they say, hey, maybe it's not best that you keep coaching here for whatever reason. How good of a job is Michigan?
Gosh,
we talked about this with Ohio
started
State.
out with this with Michigan and Ohio State.
Yeah.
I don't know how good of a job it is.
Because my gut, and maybe it's just because of past success, right? Maybe the Fab Five is in my head. Maybe Steve Fisher and Glenn Rice are in my head.
Well, they were good before the Fab Five.
Yeah, I just said Steve Fisher and Glenn Rice.
Okay.
I followed it up.
Very disrespectful to not be talking about Ramil Robinson.
Okay, well, listen, it is a little ahead of my time. I'm
Scarface,
doing my best.
as we called him in middle school, because that's who he looks like. Ramil Robinson looks just not Al Pacino, but my mind playing tricks on me, Scarface.
Yeah, not the bad movie that people like for some reason.
Really? Was that necessary?
Scarface isn't that good of a movie.
It's a good movie.
Whatever the hell it is.
People are like nostalgic about it. It's not very good.
Well, cinema has changed. I mean, if I watch Jaws in 2024, it's not a good movie.
It's not even that. It's just the whole thing is not that good.
I don't like your whole Siskel and Ebert thing, RIP, is kind of bugging me. I'm not going to get you.
I don't even
Listen,
recognize
I
what
love
we're doing.
like mob movies and stuff like that. Scarface does not do it.
Was The Godfather overrated?
The Godfather's not overrated, no.
Okay,
Just gonna. Are you a Goodfellas guy?
Yeah, The Goodfellas was okay.
See,
Or Goodfellas, not The Goodfellas is okay.
We can't have this cover. If you're trying to tell me like Scarface better than Goodfellas,
would I make that case? They're about even for me.
Absolutely not. No.
I'm surprised you have a strong take. I'm very surprised.
You know me.
You have a strong
I'm
opinion.
usually very tepid.
They're on about the same plane for me.
Gonna have to reevaluate some of your opinions here.
Well, I like a lot of bad movies.
That's fair. I do too, but I know they're bad. Like that's the difference. Man, my wife got real mad at me the other day when I said The Mummy was a bad movie. Like real mad.
Yeah.
She's still talking about it. This is like a week ago. She'll just look at me sometimes and be like, "Mummy's a great movie."
I agree with her.
Listen, it's a
Now you stay out of it.
It's an enjoyable movie. It's not a good movie.
Man,
I don't know what that has to do with Michigan being a good job or not, but here we are.
I've probably seen The Mummy more than I've seen The Godfather.
Well, listen,
one's 3 hours, one's like a minute 39.
money can't buy taste. Don't know what to tell you, Shano. We will come back and wrap up the show with our guy Matty Vrzal here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. We're wrapping up the show and wrapping up the week here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Radio, Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and we are also on KFOR in Lincoln. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla, and we are joined now by Matt Vrzal, former Husker and owner of Paisan's Pizzeria. Verz, how are you this morning?
Hey, boys, how we doing?
Matty, how are you, bud?
Still recovering from the weekend.
Are you?
I went to a 50th birthday party, and I was called many names that I did not feel was appropriate.
It was just three of us sitting around at a table.
I had profanities thrown at me that I did not think were justified.
The lies.
It caused me a lot of mental anguish.
The lies. So I'm not gonna get you started on like basketball parents in AAU, but
let's go. No. Let's go.
I'm simply going to say, did the folks from Scott come back and celebrate like they sometimes do at Paisans?
No.
Not what, Jergy stick around or what, man? He loves your place.
Well, Jergs was in.
Yeah.
Well, that's the quick turnaround of it. And Jergs is a 308 guy. Happy 308 day. But
is that a real thing, or are you just saying that?
Man, we have a stupid, it's probably vanilla donut day or whatever dumb thing they put on the calendar now. Every day, it's like participant ribbons of holidays. Like every day, everything doesn't need a day, but this does because you are out in the Tri-Cities. So shout out to all my folks out in the 308.
Happy 308 day.
So Jergs won't look ahead, and there's just a paranoia from living in the West. So he's like, "Hey man, we got film and we got this," and I said, "Yeah, you bet, you got it." So we got him some pizzas. They came over, picked them up, and took them a couple of refreshments, and they're breaking film, and they'll be ready to roll today.
Yeah, we had Sautter
on. Yeah, man.
We had Sautter.
This is what we're doing.
Oh, go ahead.
We can't have parents sit in the stands together. And listen, man, I knew Foreman is texting me as this is all going down. Yeah. And instantly in my brain, I got 3 candidates. I got 3 right off the top of my brain. Okay. Old people going to watch young men and women play basketball. You have 0 influence on any outcome of that game.
Here we go.
Pull your heads out of your asses and be an adult, because none of this centers around you, you pathetic human being. Are we really doing this? 2 grown men, and no word of a lie, the guy had the ice bag on his face, kind of happy he got smoked. Okay?
Wow.
Who do you think you are? What do you think you're going to accomplish in that? It's embarrassing. And then you got to get, President Coach Dr. Moore, he's got enough stuff going on. Don Kessler doesn't need to go handle that. They got 400 kids they got to watch and make sure they're not being unruly. But they got to watch you now? Come on, man. Get out. Listen. I don't even care. I'll sit. I don't care if you come in ever again. Beat it.
I was not. I didn't think you would say all that. I just was curious to see if, on a humbug, the folks would still show up. That's all.
No, they didn't. Then our basketball crew, like a couple years ago, a couple years back, we had a banger basketball set of families. Like they're about that life. Like we're gonna go win. We're gonna come drink 49 beers. We're gonna eat some pizza, have some wings. We're gonna go home. It's just some of the crews that come through aren't quite as social. Like they do their own thing. Now the Van Dykes, they came in. The Van Dykes and that Columbus upbringing, they're about that life. Like win or lose, they're coming in. They're coming in. It's happening. They're awesome. And Alex, their oldest son, came in, so it was good to see him.
Yeah. What's going on? And just shoot me straight, because I know you're gonna make. If Russell Wilson lands in Pittsburgh, I know you'll make fun of me mercilessly. But are you of the ilk? And I know you're not a Caleb Williams guy, but I never got your opinion on if you would keep Justin Fields and use the 2 picks for something else, or you move Fields for 2 picks and not take Caleb Williams.
Okay, answer me this question: where do you think Fiske will go? The D tackle from Florida State.
Braden Fisk, I like him.
I think he's probably. I don't think he's the first round.
No, he's probably
okay,
second.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, then the Bears are a B team. Okay, so why take an alleged generational talent that couldn't win at USC?
This dude is fired up.
Why take that when you can go build parts? Get me out of 1, get me to the 3, and I'm even good at the 4, because give me Marvin Harrison Jr., okay? So now Fields has another weapon, DJ Moore and Fields, okay? I get one of those 2, right? I say I got 2 receivers now. I got tight ends coming out my ass, so I'm good there. Now I can go down, and then my 9th pick, if my tackle, and there are a ton of tackles that are there, are available, I take them. And now I got a tackle. And then I just keep cruising down. And I pick up old Fiske from Florida State. And now I got a freak. Like I got my own freak on the defensive line. You keep Sweat there, and you become pretty good. Unfortunately, the Central Division, the NFC Central, is getting way good, so that sucks. But I love Dan Campbell. He's awesome. I wish that guy, like, that's football. Like, if you want to know how hard love works, Dan Campbell. Like, that dude is awesome. But now Buffalo is letting their whole team go, so I can go get Mitch Morse, right? And so now I'm good at center.
Hey, how about them getting Trubisky back? Like, what?
Hey,
what are you doing?
Way to go, Buffalo. Then we don't have to try to deal with these. They probably would have signed them in Chicago. But then now they don't tag Saquon.
Yeah,
I got money.
Yeah, it's getting ready.
I got money.
Getting ready to be a nice little run on running backs here.
But as far as Russell Wilson, I trust Mike Tomlin a lot, and I do like, and I know people don't like the Miller guy coming from Atlanta to be the OC. I think that's a good move because some guys are just built to call plays. They're not built to be the leader.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Tomlin is a leader top to bottom. And if Russell Wilson and Team 3 and Mr. Unlimited or wherever he is wants to come in and start acting crazy, Mike Tomlin will be like, no, we don't do that here. You're in Pittsburgh. You give it to Najee, you throw it to number 14 on play action pass, and we're gonna win. And we don't. That's all you're doing. So I don't need your folks. I don't need your crew around my stadium. Beat it.
So you're wide open to polls trying to keep Fields, right?
You have a B team. If you get an alleged generational talent in there and you're playing around B players, he can't make anybody better, Damon. He didn't make USC better. Did he?
The record would tell you no.
Generational talents make teams better, correct?
I keep hearing that.
Theoretically.
I mean, think about it. Like Tennessee before Peyton Manning kind of took over, middle of the pack. Yeah?
Yeah.
Not that great.
Although T. Martin somehow was still the quarterback to win the national championship, though.
Say what now?
I said, although T. Martin was still somehow the quarterback to win the national championship.
But you got that wave, right?
Yeah.
You got that, there's a lag in a wave. Nebraska made the 2001 national championship game.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Verz, are there any quarterbacks Are there any quarterbacks in this class that you would like maybe Chicago take a flyer on outside the first round?
Oh man, no. The one I want is gonna be gone.
Who?
From South Alabama?
Jaden. Oh no, I'd take that kid later.
Yeah.
But no, I like Jaden Daniels.
You
like
do?
You could take him at 3.
I do. I like him. No,
He's Zoe size. What do you? I thought you wanted a guy that could cut through the wind in Chicago. Like, what are you talking about?
So he's done growing. He's not gonna put it. Nobody's ever put weight on.
Oh, okay.
Peyton Manning got bigger.
Okay. That is not of all the guys I thought you'd say that. Why, Matt?
I think he's used to. I retweeted something the other day. I think it was from James Light, but it was the beauty of play action.
Yeah.
And how it makes quarterbacks that are just crazy athletic look awesome in the passing game.
Mm-hmm.
And you're a run the damn ball guy, so you're like play action, baby.
I don't think Daniels. I can make the same argument for Daniels and Caleb Williams without the. That would just be like if Fields wasn't there, I would take Daniels over Williams.
You're just out. It just doesn't fit your personality.
All the way out on Caleb.
He doesn't fit Chicago. I think players have to fit the city. I think you have to fit the city you're going to. Look at Jason Kelce.
Yeah.
Is there anybody more Philadelphia than Jason Kelce?
No.
That guy hammers beers, dressed as a mummer at the celebration.
No.
And just screamed into the microphone for 40 minutes. And
Verse, we appreciate it.
And if anybody ever wonders, Damon Benning does say the F word because he said it to me.
That's a lie.
I got a witness. Everybody.
Chris is not vouching for you.
100% he will.
No, he's not.
Verse, we appreciate it.
We already talked about it.
We appreciate it. We'll talk to you again next week.
You guys kind of talked about getting rid of bodies. Who does that? Don't trust that guy.
That's all for this week on Hurrdat Sports Radio. We'll see you on Monday.